They can hear you right now. Well, they'll hear you in 30 seconds. And welcome to my beginning of 2019 extravaganza, where I'm going to rank all 87 2018 movies that I saw in 2018. That's to say, I saw like 400 movies this year at home with my kids and all kinds of things from other years. But of the new releases from the year 2018 that I saw in the year 2018, there were 87 of them, and that's what we are going to be talking about, discussing, ranking today. And yeah, we have been prepping for this for a while. I started making my list the first movie I saw back in January. So this has literally been about 363 days in the making since last year's video where I did this. So ideally, we're going to have a fun time. Hopefully technology works. That's the scary one for me, is that technology will go crazy on me, as technology often does with these things. But before we get started, thank you guys so much for watching my videos this past year, commenting, liking, subscribing, sharing, what all the wonderful things that you've done. Some of you guys buying my merch and my I Talk Movies Too Much swag and gear and everything. Thank you so much. This has been a phenomenal year for my family. We kicked off the year with the flu. Things started. I got the flu the first week of the year. Third day I was sick. I was laying in bed. My wife walks in. Hey, are you over there?
I'm over here.
She's right over there. She walks in and she goes, hey, I'm pregnant. So, and I didn't know if I was hallucinating. I didn't know if I was going crazy or anything like that. And then just the year's been great. New baby. She got a promotion January, like this huge new job that she got with her company. It was massive. And then with the channel, because of you wonderful people, things have just taken off. And thank you so much for making that happen, that making this a fantastic 2018 for us. And hopefully 2019, fingers crossed, will be even better. And the sky is the limit to where things might reach for the channel as well as my family. So I just wanted to start off with a big, gigantic thank you. As we go into this, if you're watching in this future, this was recorded as a live stream, so there's might be some technological glitches along the way. Throughout this, I'm going to pause a few times. I got a couple like pre-recorded little ad deals that I'm going to put up here so I can maybe run to the bathroom, get a drink, and things like that. And the way it's going to work is about every 10 movies at certain appropriate blocks, all the 70s, I'll pause to kind of get your feedback on what were the worst movies of the year, what were the most mediocre movies of the year. If you have some questions, if you want to defend a movie, like when we talk about Venom in that section, you guys are going to want to defend Venom. Some of you are going to go, no, Venom's even worse. So we'll pause to have a little bit of that discussion. If you put some super chats in, if you want to ask your questions, we'll do our best to respond to and acknowledge as many of those as possible. Keep them on subject, though. If you want to throw a quick one in there like, Sean, you're amazing. Hey, I appreciate it, and we'll read that off. But if you kind of ask some question, hey, Sean, what's your 10 favorite movies of all time? We might not be able to get to all of that just because we're trying to keep it on subject to ranking the best movies of 2018 to the best of our abilities. And so that's what we're trying to do here. My wife has a question. We haven't even started yet, and she's got a question.
I'm just telling you, there's 670 people watching right now.
670 people watching. So I think that's like by far.
The comments are just flying. So that's another reason it might be hard to get questions. I can barely read them.
So my wife is running the chat board. If you get a little bit funky in there, she might have to block you or something like that. She's going to do her best to grab some of your questions, grab some of those comments. If you can try and pause the screen or whatever it is. But there's a lot of people in here. This is by far our biggest live stream we've ever done. And 740 people. So, woo! This is a nice, fun crowd. I'm going to get one drink. Today we're going to kick it off with a Coca-Cola. I've got some Dr. Pepper as well.
This is not actually a sponsored drink.
Not sponsored by them, but they do keep my throat nice and quenched. With that said, we're going to kick things off talking about our bottom 10, my worst of the year. If you guys have been watching my channel over the last week, you probably can guess some of the movies in here. But as I go into my bottom 10, as best as you can in the comment section, my wife's going to try and track this, share what were your picks for the worst movies of the year. And if you want to defend a movie I put in here, there's probably the only one on my bottom 10 you might defend is The Predator. But if you want to defend one of these movies, also try and put that in there. And because the trapdoor is moving so fast, Super chats are the easiest way to make sure that my wife can actually see what it is and we can respond to it. But we'll talk about that after my bottom 10. Do you want to throw those in there? So real quick, let's get started with the bottom 10. Coming in last place, my pick for the worst movie of 2018, without question, was Show Dogs. Now, when I talk about worst movies of the year and things like that, there's movies that are made with good intentions that just don't turn out great. And I feel kind of bad putting a movie like that on a list like this. Like, Truth or Dare, it seems like they had a concept, and I just thought it was a little bit weak. And then there's movies that put things out there that I just go, what's wrong with you? Like, how do you make something like that and nobody says there's something wrong with that? Show Dogs is my pick for the What's Wrong With You award for 2018. So if you've missed my previous video, basically it's a talking dogs movie. My daughter watches those all the time. Literally all the time. You have to sit through those all the time. What's your favorite of those ones? They're all awful.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Talking dog movies. So
any of the buddy ones.
The buddy ones. Okay. So the buddy ones are the best of the bunch, but they're not good. But they don't put them out in theaters normally. They're just shot straight to Disney Channel, straight to Netflix, whatever, direct to video. This one is of the same quality of all those, but they put it out there in the theater. So right off the bat, it makes itself look bad for that reason. But that's not why it's last. It would be low on the list for that reason. But the reason it's last is because they put a plot line in this movie where it's about show dogs, present dogs that get put in shows. And part of the process of show dogs is that the judges reach to the undercarriage and I don't know what they do. I don't want to know what that's a weird job to have. I don't know who decides to have that job. But so they fondle the dog's parts. And one of these subplots in this movie is about how the dog doesn't like this. Not surprising, and it's not really consenting to it. And so other people teach him to go to his Zen place, so while someone is inappropriately touching him that he doesn't want, he's okay with it. And they put this in the movies, released it in theaters. Surprise, surprise, the internet freaked out, like, how dare you people insane, what's wrong with you? And so they actually, in this big, gigantic scandal, they had to re-edit the movie between week 1 and week 2, re-released it, and they cut this plot line out because essentially it's child grooming. It's really dangerous stuff to put in a kids movie because it puts something out there that normalizes someone trying to make you okay with someone touching you inappropriately. That stuff makes me mad. That stuff makes me go, what's wrong with you? So, Show Dogs, the morons that made this movie, whatever, like, who does this? Like, Hollywood, do better next time. Let's not put child grooming in children's movies in 2019. Just my little tip for you guys. Coming in at number 86, the runner-up for worst of the year was Happy Time Murders. Now, to be fair, going into the last month, I asked you guys on my community tab, hey, what are the worst movies of this year? And you guys mentioned this one. So I was actively trying to watch bad movies over the last month. And my poor wife, she had to sit there and watch about half of these movies in the last month. Very sorry about that one. And one of those ones from this last week was Happy Time Murders, which it's just like, if it was a live action movie, it would be this like sleazy, scuzzy, like cliche film that's basically a bad porno is what it would be, because it's like the private detective bangs chicks in his office, then goes to the porn shop where people are naked. And like, it's just like, this would be this scuzzy movie. But no, it's Muppets, so it's hilarious. It's a comedy. But that's literally as deep as the jokes go. That's there's not like a wit to it. It's not clever. It's not like there's something to it. It doesn't have something to say. When you watch the trailers, that's the way they promoted the movie. Like, you think the Muppets are like this? Check out this. And it's a one-joke movie. And a one-joke movie is a movie that essentially has this one thing that the creators think is funny. What if Muppets behaved badly? What if a Muppet was smoking crack? What if a Muppet got his head blowed off? What if a Muppet was banging another Muppet? Like, it's just one joke. That's the whole movie. And there's nothing beyond that. There's no cleverness to it. So I just watched it. I was like, oh my goodness, this is dreadful. And I can enjoy like crass humor. I can enjoy R-rated, all kinds of stuff. And she gets like all kinds, she'll come home frequently. Like, why are you watching this? Like, I find stuff like this funny. I find inappropriate things funny. Right. I have a very crass, dark sense of humor.
Absolutely you do.
That's, just giving the easy answer there. This movie, however, there's no wit to it. So it is my second worst film of the year. Coming in at number 85, Slender Man. What could have been a decent hit back in 2011 when Slender Man was like at the peak of his internet fame, that maybe they could have come out with something like this and it would have been relevant, meaningful, and not awful. But they waited 7 years too long for a Slender Man movie. In which case, the joke's kind of done. The horror of it's kind of gone. The trend passed. Which is one of the problems with trying to make a horror movie based off of like an internet trend. Like trying to jump on that thing as quick as you can. It doesn't work very well. In which case, you get this movie that just feels out of its time. It feels so late to the party. And then the movie itself, it's just boring. It's not one of these horror movies that has like a wink at the audience thing going on. It doesn't have humor to it. It's all played totally straight-faced. And you don't get a lot of time with Slender Man. You just have like disturbing and creepy images with this set of like 3 generic teenagers. Generic teenager 1, generic teenager 2, and generic teenager 3. Just take whatever the stereotypes of teenage girls inside of horror movies, and that's our 3 lead characters, them walking around in their house with the light off while being freaked out, not turning the light on. And it's just like, this is the whole movie. And so just very boring, not interesting. I remember there's a scene like in a library where I was like, this is kind of cool. That's it. That's my positive thing to say about it. The scene in the library had a cool shot in it. The rest of the movie, it was bad. Coming in at number 84 is Gotti. This is another one that I forced my wife to watch. This was the last one we watched before I made this list. I was like, I gotta sneak in Gotti real quick. What do we got?
You need to make yourself not sound like such a villain. Like, I could leave the room. Like, I watch them with you because I want to spend time with you, but...
I chained her down to the couch and like, Clockwork Orange style, pinned her eyes open and made her watch it. So I put them on as my nighttime movie. So she was like washing the dishes and doing things like that and feeding the baby, as you can probably hear in the background a little bit. And so she was there, though. But so I put Gotti on, and it was one of the worst. And it's bad. It's really bad. But it's bad boring and bad weird. As for the story of it, it felt like they took 40 things from Gotti's life, and they just wrote them on cards. And then the guy was walking into his office to come and write the script for it, and he tripped and fell and dropped all these cards with these incidents from his life, and he sort of shuffled them back together, and then wrote the script in the order of these cards, because it kicks off, and he's in a prison cell, and he's old, and then it's the 70s, and then it's 1990, and then we're back to 1980, and it's just telling all these random stories, and then his kid gets run over, and then he shoots this guy, and we're back in prison, and just random things are happening with no central story arc, no character arc, no themes, just stuff happening that has some relevance to Gotti's life. And then add to that, the makeup for it is bizarre because they're going all out on John Travolta. They show him when he's young and they try and make him look like a young John Travolta. And then they show him in prison and it's full old man makeup. And another main character in it is his son. And his son, all they do to make his son look older is they give him glasses and they put a little salt and pepper on the sides. But it's like a 25-year-old guy, pretending he's 40 because he's got very small amounts of gray hair. But John Travolta looks like he's aged 1,000 years. I mean, that's the movie. And one final one, trashing this one. The soundtrack is insane for this thing. They got Pitbull to do the theme song for it. So this guy that's very much trending 2018 guy is doing music for a movie set in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So it feels out of place immediately. And then when they tried to do let's pick a 70s song as Gotti does a hit, they picked the theme song from Shaft. Shaft, a blaxploitation film, very tied to a specific culture that is not Italian mobsters. It's not a good fit. It's a weird direction to go with the theme music for a movie like this. So, Gotti, a very boring bad movie. Next up, not a boring bad movie, but a bad movie nonetheless. And number 3 is Robin Hood. Robin Hood. Now, Now, I could see how someone could see this movie and have fun with it because it moves quickly. It's got a great cast of likable people, whether you're talking Ben Mendelsohn, Jamie Foxx, Taron Egerton. Like, they're all fun people to see on screen. There's a lot of big action sequences in it. And so I could see where you could have fun with it, especially if you don't go to see 1,000 movies, or if you don't go see 87 movies every year like I did, you could have fun with this one. But, like, for me, it was just tedious. I mean, it's just, some of it's just ridiculous. There's this, like, Black Hawk Down sequence in the beginning, and literally there's, like, Robin Hood's running away from people while someone's shooting, like, a Gatling gun that's shooting arrows at him, and the arrows are hitting rocks, and there's bricks shooting everywhere, and you're just watching, like, is this satire? Like, are they making a parody of Robin Hood? Because, like, that technology did not exist, and arrows do not cause rocks to explode. And so some of it's just, like, outrageously silly, the direction that they went with this movie. The costumes are out of line, everything like that. And so it like was totally very weird. And then it tried to be really serious other times. And it it attempted to have some like political commentary without really saying anything. So it wasn't really commentary. It was just like allusions to modern politics by the sheriff of Nottingham being like, the poor need to pay their fair share. And it would like say lines from the 21st century and things that sound like news people today. But it's not saying anything. It's no commentary on anything. It's just like, see, we're smart. We watched the news and said it in our movie. Pretty cool, right? No, that's not cool at all. That's weird. And more importantly, I went to Robin Hood to escape. Escapism. Escape from the modern political culture and all the annoying things about life right now. I went to the movies to escape it. Not to have you having the Sheriff of Nottingham force it into Robin Hood. So a movie this is the one that annoyed me the most. The one that I was watching it being like, this is so easy to make a fun movie that I would enjoy watching. Why am I so annoyed by your movie? So this one for me annoyed me the most. Coming in at number 82 is Hurricane Heist. It's from the director of the original Fast and Furious. So that sounded fun to me. It's called Hurricane Heist. So that sounded fun to me. And it's about a heist in a hurricane. So that sounded fun to me. The movie itself, just kind of boring and forgettable. And because it was straight-faced, it didn't like embrace it like Twister from 20 years ago. It knew it was a dumb movie and it just went all out. Like, let's make a dumb movie about Bill Paxton driving his truck through a house in the middle of a twister. That's fun. It's ridiculous. It embraced the kooky. This one played it like a straight story about guys committing a heist in the middle of a hurricane. So it wasn't fun. It was just like a bad action movie that was way too serious. And then I mentioned I mentioned this before, but the movie's packed with horrible accents. Horrible accents. The lead guy, Toby Kebbell, is from Yorkshire. I think, I don't know if I pronounced that right either, but in my video previously I said Yorkshire, which people told me that was very wrong. But he's from England, and he's talking with this Alabama accent that just sounds ridiculous. As ridiculous as it sounds like this Texan right here trying to say Yorkshire and saying dumb things like that, that's what our British guy trying to speak Alabamian sounds like to me. And so this movie to me, it's just boring and forgettable, which a movie about a hurricane heist should not be boring, and it should not be forgettable. So that was kind of frustrating to me. It's an easy win to make a fun movie that I'd be like, oh yeah, it's dumb fun. I love dumb fun Taco Bell movies, and that's not what this movie was. Coming in at number 81 was The Spy Who Dumped Me. This one was another one. I thought I was going to like this one, and then I heard bad things about it, and so I was like, oh, maybe I'm not going to like this one. And then I saw it, and I didn't like it. It felt like it was relying too much on the, look, girls can behave bad too. Look, girls can say crass things too. Look, girls can shoot people in the face with a gun too. It was just relying on that gimmick as opposed to having something important to say. And so you had the whole movie was about Mila Kunis having strong opinions about, or being like locked in on this guy, and then it's like we're kind of rooting for them, but not at the same time. Like it didn't work on that romance level. Like you think it should have had some of that James Bondy romance or something to it, but it didn't. And then Kate McKinnon, I've just never liked her. Now people keep telling me, oh, have you seen her on Saturday Night Live? Of course not, because I haven't watched Saturday Night Live in 20 years. There's like this old joke that everyone says, Saturday Night Live used to be good. And when they say Saturday Night Live used to be good, they mean it stopped being good when that person graduated high school. And that seems to be true, because I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, it was so good back in the 90s with Will Ferrell and the stuff in the 80s. And then, it got bad around the zeros, right around when I graduated high school. And then other people say that about that are 10 years younger than me. Oh, it started to get bad around 2010. And so I'm in that category of like, I just haven't watched it. It's been, especially recently, like once again, I watched Saturday Night Live to escape stuff, and they're just so heavily slanted and at an agenda that it's just not even entertaining to me anymore at all. So I haven't really watched it. So I don't know if she's funny on there. Maybe she would be. I doubt it. But she just is in the background doing weird gestures and saying weird stuff and just acting obnoxious, broad comedy. I'm just not interested. It doesn't interest me. And that's what this movie was. Mila Kunis cursing like a guy in a movie like this, and Kate McKinnon acting obnoxious, and me not being entertained. Next up, at number 80, so we've made it to our top 80 of the year, is Truth or Dare. Now, this is one of the ones that was probably a more fun and watchable of my bottom 10. I didn't think it was good. It certainly didn't like where it ended, but it's a fun bad movie. At least it had an entertainment value to it. But what made this one I just couldn't support it. It had to kind of end up in the bottom 10 for me, is that it has the plot line's basically you have to play truth or dare, and if you don't do the truth or the dare, you die. That's the plot of the movie. And then there's a plot in it where the dare is that they have to sleep with someone else. I guess maybe mild spoiler, but I'm not going to tell you which people are involved in this. In which case, then this moves forward, in which case you're basically watching a rape. Like, this is non-consensual sex. This is uncomfortable to watch. And it's like the people making the movie didn't know that. And there's all these little things in it where they didn't think through, like, what's the implications of what we're doing right now? It's like, you have to think through this stuff before you make a movie. And you get to the plot twist at the end of it, and it makes you hate everyone in the movie. Like, they're just awful people. There's this weird smile thing that's all throughout the film that's not good. And so, all in all, not a good movie. Not good. Could have been. The premise, the setup of a game of truth or dare where you die if you don't do the truth or the dare, that's pretty interesting. The movie they made, not so interesting. Coming in at number 79 is Red Sparrow. Red Sparrow. To be fair, we didn't finish the movie. So, granted, it could be a movie that if I continued watching it, like, oh wow, it's a great spy thriller once you get into the movie. But if you make a movie, and it's the only movie this year that I didn't finish. I started it, was like, I'm going to watch this, and I was like, I'm going to turn this off because this is not something I want to watch. It was Red Sparrow. It's the only one. And essentially it's because the movie is about sex espionage. That is to say, the Soviet use of sex as a mechanism to gain information, which is kind of an interesting plot line. That's an interesting direction to go. But the inherent nature of that, when you play it out on screen, is not entertaining to me, as they have the spy training school is essentially a prostitution training school where it's like girls are getting raped in the showers, and then they show up to class and it's like, you gotta bang this guy in front of everybody. And they're like, I don't want to do that. You gotta do it. If you don't do it today, you're doing it tomorrow. And the girls are like crying. Like, if that sounds like, oh man, that would be great. I would love to see that. That's weird. But this is the movie for you. As for me, I didn't want to watch that. Like, I put, like, my wife were like, oh, a spy movie with Jennifer Lawrence. That's Jennifer Lawrence is her maiden name. So this will be a lot of fun. Not so much. And everything I just described is in the first 35 minutes. Also in the first 35 minutes, an additional rape sequence where someone, like, and scenes of people being murdered while having sex and people watching porn to desensitize them. Like, that's the movie. Like, if that sounds great to you, you have this thing that now exists that can be something distinctly great for you. As for me, we didn't even finish it. So that was not our thing. Real quick, I'm about to start taking some of your questions, comments after I talk about one more movie. So if you want to tell me your picks for the worst, your defenses of some of the movies or something like that, be sure to throw it over there. We're going to get to that in just a second. But as for now, my final pick for the bottom 10 movies of 2018, The Predator. Now, this one was painful for me because this was my most anticipated movie of the year. Because I love the original Predator. Shane Black who was kind of a script doctor on the original and acted in the original and has gone on to be, he wrote the Lethal Weapon movies, Iron Man 3, this great guy with a distinct voice. He's returning to the franchise. This is going to be great. And I love the cast. The movie itself, wow, it's an experience. Apparently what happened, they did a test screening and people were like, what is this? This movie just goes off the rails in the second half. And so then they reshot, re-edited, restructured the entire second half of the movie, and they cut out like a week of time in the story, as well as Edward James Olmos, Area 51, multiple additional Predators, and they just kind of like tried to like condense it into fewer characters and just redid this whole thing. And it shows. You watch the movie and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, two people are talking to each other. The movie takes place Halloween night. I mean, it's just like this long kind of chase run over Halloween night. And someone turns to the other person and they go, remember back on Halloween night? And you're watching the movie being like, you mean 2 hours ago? Like, what? Why are you talking about it like it was a week ago? Because they cut a week out of the movie. And I mean, just all sorts of stuff like that. And like half the cast of the movie dies in a very short period of time because they re-edited the movie. They're supposed to die over the span of this huge amount of time. People just show up in places. A main cast member dies, and I didn't know he was dead for 10 minutes. And it's just like, I can't believe they actually released it at the level of incompetence in this movie was shocking. Now, I'm going to rewatch this movie because it's a Predator movie. I can get enjoyment out of it because it's a Predator movie. There's things about it that are very enjoyable, but it's also a very badly made movie. It has enormous numbers of issues. And then one fun thing that's been released since I put out my bottom 10 of the year list, they released a couple days ago. I don't want to go too far into this, but in the final sequence in the movie, where it's designed to be a big reveal, one of the things that happened was that they filmed his scene where Ellen Ripley is the big reveal. What? Like, just stop and think about, like, Ellen Ripley in the time frame of the Alien movies was born 100 years after the timeline of this movie. So that's the movie that you're watching when you watch The Predator. One where they thought, hey, what if Ellen Ripley showed up at the end? Like, are we introducing time travel? Like, what are you... The Predator. So, anyway, real quick. So, if we had some feedback from the comment section, we got questions, comments, anything?
Some people are reminding you that you left the hospital to see that movie.
Oh, yeah, I gotta tell that story. I've got some... if you want to get the super chats ready to tell me. But, yeah, so... I mentioned in the video that... My wife had a baby. Actually, the baby's right there. She's holding the baby. Had a baby on a Wednesday. The movie came out Thursday night. And I left her. I left both of them in the hospital to go watch the movie. And, she was begging me to stay because it was colic baby, crying, still crying. None of that happened. I ran it by her well in advance. All of this was like, I'm not going to leave if you're not totally okay with this. And then we made sure everything was lined up, that like everyone was sleeping, everything was covered. I didn't leave her alone in desperation, like, please don't leave me, husband. I just had a baby. That's not what happened at all. I did leave my wife in the hospital and my newborn baby in the hospital by themselves to go watch The Predator. We got some super chats or anything?
Yes. YouTuber says, hi, Sean.
Hello.
Alex Bolano says, hi. Lots of eyes.
Thank you.
Videos.
Thank you.
The Cyber Beast says, Robin Hood is my least favorite movie. By the way, love your vids.
Thank you.
Jack Does Climbing 10 says, hi. And then we just got Gloria Gilkison. Says, I'm a big fan of your channel. I'm Mason.
Thank you. Thank you for all the kind words. Do we have what were some other people's picks, or did anyone have any defenses?
Some people were surprised that Robin Hood was ranked lower than The Predator. Like, worse.
Because because I can get enjoyment out of The Predator. Like, I'm gonna buy The Predator. Maybe tonight. I might actually want to show it to you tonight because it's interesting to me. It's an interesting bad. It's an interesting bad. It's not like Gotti. It's an interesting bad. So it's a movie that I debated whether I should put it in my bottom 10 because it's a movie I can enjoy. But I'm going, so on my rating system, I've got the letter and then I've got the number. And so the Predator, I have to go low on the letter because it's a poorly made movie. But entertainment level, I can probably get some entertainment out of it. So it's tricky for me in trying to weigh some of this stuff. Whereas Robin Hood, it's a movie that I was just like, I was annoyed watching it. I was frustrated watching it. And it's better made. It doesn't have the just incompetence on screen. It has incompetence in the ideas in the script. But so that's the difference for me. Other ones.
We've got some people looking for the Meg, wondering if it's going to be in the bottom 10, which it isn't.
Yeah, the Meg's not bottom 10 for me. It's not. That's not a type of movie that. It wasn't that for me.
Some people say Aquaman is their least favorite of the year.
That's what's interesting. That some of the divisive ones would be Venom, Aquaman, Solo, where people were like, "Why aren't these ones in your bottom 10?" And then other people were like, "Why aren't they in your top 10?" Like, what? I can't win on these ones.
Holmes and Watson. Did you see that one?
No, I didn't. So Holmes and Watson came out this week. This whole last week, I have been doing my end of year videos. Like, she can tell you. Christmas morning, we opened presents as a family. I came upstairs into the space right here, shot my 10 most surprising movies of the year, and then we loaded everything up. I took my laptop with me, and we headed off to a second family Christmas, ate a meal, I edited video, then we opened presents, and then I edited video. That's what my week has been. And so I did not abandon either making videos for you guys or time with family to go watch Holmes and Watson. But this is the one with Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly.
The one they tried to sell to Netflix.
Well, yeah, so the one they tried to sell to Netflix because it was so bad, and Netflix was like, "Are you kidding me? We don't want this." And so I haven't seen that one. It probably would be on the list. Same with Sherlock Gnomes. 50 Shades would be on here. 50 Shades of Mommy Porn 3 would be on here if I saw it. I'm not going to watch it, but those ones, like 50 Shades is a high candidate to make my bottom 10 because I have serious issues with it on a conceptual level. It speaks to very much the Me Too stuff of like a rich guy with power wants a girl to do things sexually that she doesn't want to do and has to make a contract with her and she's uncomfortable with things. If you read the quotes from the book, they're very frightening quotes. Like there's a bunch of really scary stuff. And so it's a movie that I have moral issues with. So it's almost guaranteed that those ones, and it normalizes and romanticizes an abusive relationship. And that to me is like not cool stuff. That is very not cool stuff for me. Any real quick ones? Do we have another super chat or anything come in?
Yes. Are you going to watch the Super Bowl from Rich Reviews?
Am I going to watch?
I'm sorry, the Rose Bowl.
No, I do not have any place to watch. I don't really watch a lot of the. I watch the Super Bowl if I'm with friends or family and for the trailers and stuff like that. I used to watch it when I was in youth ministry because then we do the big event. I don't watch a lot of that stuff in and of itself when it's just me because there's just too many other things. YouTube and movies have kind of taken over my life. So with that said, we'll continue on and continue telling me some of your picks for some of the really bad movies, the movies that were just bad. This next section, I'm going to talk about some direct-to-video movies or perhaps Netflix movies. So during this next section, tell us your picks for the worst direct-to-video movies or direct-to-Netflix movies that you saw. The worst of not theatrical, but direct-to-video ones. Real quick, I got a fun bumper for you. So, hey, when I'm back, my wife started talking to me and making gestures, so I looked over, and then we came back, as if we took a long 4-second break there. Let's continue on our list. The next three are all direct-to-video movies that I watched with some level of anticipation for them, and they were awful. At number 77, my wife loves bad shark movies. That's why The Meg won't be in our bottom 10. Because that's for us, that's like the Super Bowl of bad shark movies. It's still
watched it in a lake.
And we watched it in a lake. We'll get to that in later. But as for the crappiness of bad shark movies, Deep Blue Sea 2. Deep Blue Sea 2. The plot line of it, it's kind of like Jurassic Park for the first 15 minutes, except bad. And then it's just bad. Like you don't care about the characters. You don't care about any. There's not enough gore and death in it. There's nothing about it that's good. Like, the only thing I remember about it is that it's Jurassic Park type plotline to it. Our main girl's in a bikini a lot, which is probably not surprising for a movie like this. And this one death where someone's like in a hallway and like their eye comes out or something like that. And I can't remember anything else about it. Can you remember anything else? What's your take? You love the bad shark movies. Why did you hate this one?
I don't remember.
Exactly.
It's thankfully erased from my memory, but I just remember it being terrible, and I told anyone with any interest.
Yeah, they're like, so we watched it because you love Deep Blue Sea. You have friends over like, let's watch Deep Blue Sea. Second one.
Nope.
No. And remember the context of that. Our bar is the original Deep Blue Sea. That's a pretty good movie. That's our bar. And so it comes so far below that. Don't watch it. Next up, you haven't seen this one almost certainly, Blackwater. Blackwater. So this is a collaboration between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren. About a month ago, with Creed 2 coming out, Dolph Lundgren's back in the theater. And Aquaman, Dolph Lundgren's back in the theater. We're having a Dolph Lundgren renaissance in our household. I ordered Dolph Lundgren's The Punisher on Blu-ray from Europe. Watched that one. So we were just like in a Dolph Lundgren mood. And he had a new movie come out this year that was with Jean-Claude Van Damme. They did Universal Soldier together. They've done a bunch of stuff together. So I was like, this could be cool. It's on a submarine. Not so much. Not so much. I thought it was going to be at least bad fun. It's just forgettable dull. We watched it, 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago? Do you remember anything about it? It's like they're in cells on a sub and it does flashbacks. There's no cool action sequences. It's just like one of those movies that you watch and you're like, okay, that just happened. And you just forget everything about it. So, not good. At number 75 is Escape Plan. Escape Plan 2, Hades. So the original Escape Plan, just, middle of the road B movie with the hook of the movie was Stallone and Schwarzenegger full-blown starring in a movie together where they're prison inmates trying to break out of a prison with an escape plan. So the sequel still has Stallone as the lead, and then it brings in Dave Bautista. I like Dave Bautista. If you're going to do a mod, you don't have Schwarzenegger, you do someone else, that's pretty cool. But that's not what the movie is. The movie is not Stallone and Bautista breaking out of a prison. The movie is some other guys are in a prison that are a part of Stallone's team, and they're in a fight ring in the prison. So the most cliche thing you can do with a prison movie. And then outside of it is Stallone trying to break them out. And then he sometimes teams up with Bautista in some scenes. But the whole script feels like basically Stallone's like, all right, I can give you 10 days. You got 10 days with me. And then Bautista's like, yeah, you got 3 days with me. And then they wrote the script around their schedules. So the movie's really about these other guys that you don't know who they are in a Fight Club movie. And then we occasionally cut to these scenes totally unrelated somewhere else. I mean, it's just such a disappointment because my bar for Escape Plan 2 was not high. It just needed to be like an actual movie. And instead it just felt like scenes cut together of garbage. Actually, I guess it was 4 direct-to-video ones. Number 4, Kickboxer Retaliation. This is the second movie in the rebooted Kickboxer franchise. I enjoyed the first movie. It's a simple concept with Van Damme as the mentor and some other guy trying to avenge his brother. And he battled, once again, Dave Bautista in the first one. The second one moves in Mike Tyson into the mix as a mentor guy, and there's no plot or too many plot lines. Just plot line. None of it tying together. Making a tournament fighter movie about martial arts that entertains me is very easy to do. The bar is low. All you have to do is this guy's out for revenge. This guy killed this guy's brother. This guy has been arrested and he's in prison. He's in a fight club in the prison. It's real simple. And somehow they botched it. I mean, just so many things going on that it just wasn't entertaining. Fun fact, the guy that is the star in these new Kickboxer movies was one of the actors that played Batman in the season finale of Titans. Fun fact, now you know, but don't go watch this movie. Now you know that too. At number 73 is Proud Mary, a movie that not too many people saw. Taraji B. Henson, it's an little B-movie action movie with her from January that was just forgettable. She's like a hitman or gun for hire type person that meets a kid, and so you discover that she's got a heart of gold, or it's one of those types of movies that it just kind of came and went. I don't remember too much about it. It's another one of those movies that you go, what happened in that movie? The action sequences weren't very memorable. I've seen it like on super sale a couple times for a couple bucks, and I was like, oh, it's only a couple bucks. Should I buy that? And I went, what's the context where I would ever want to rewatch that? It's one of those movies that you're like, it's my genre. Action movies are my genre, and I was like, I'm never going to rewatch that. At number 72 is Mile 22, one of the biggest disappointments of this year. This movie was just shocking how disappointing this movie was. At the core, it's a direct action movie starring Mark Wahlberg. So I hear that and I go, oh wow, cool. I'm down with that. Directed by Peter Berg. And this is the guy that did Friday Night Lights as the TV show and the movie. And we're in Central Texas. We, like, literally the TV show Friday Night Lights, in the opening credits is the football stadium that is about 1 mile that way. I can see it out that window, is where one of these stadiums are. Like, there's this big ice cream cone thing at the beginning of the opening credits. That's a mile from my mom's house, 10 miles that way. And so we are in the country to love Peter Berg for giving us the gift that is Friday Night Lights and capturing the culture that is Friday nights where we live. And then he did Lone Survivor with Marky Mark. He did Patriots Day with Marky Mark. He did Deepwater Horizon with Marky Mark. Like, he did a set of really great movies. And this is just a crappy action movie. And the thing that just makes you grabs your heart and just rips it out of your chest and just tears it to pieces. They hired Iko. I don't know how to pronounce his name properly. From The Raid. I've never heard his name said by him, so I do apologize for almost certainly botching it. The guy from The Raid. This is like the hottest action star in the world right now. Not in the sense of like cool martial artist that like we want to see what he's going to do next if you like martial arts movies. The Raid and The Raid 2 are some of like the most praised martial arts movies of the last 10 years. They get him to showcase his skills in the movie. And what the showcase is that he can do all these cool moves, move fast, in long takes. He doesn't need to be chopped to pieces to do it. And then, what do they do in the movie? Close-ups, shaky cam, edited really quick. You just cast the guy that's the best at it, and you chopped it to pieces as if he's a hack that can't do these moves. And beyond that, the characters weren't likable. That was the thing that was like right out of the gate. I was like, I don't like any of these characters. I mean, just any of them. And then there's a big twist at the end that you're like, what? That doesn't work particularly well. So I didn't like that one. Did you? What? You watched that one with you, Mile 22? The action movie with Marky Mark? Literally, we watched it 3 or 4 weeks ago, and she can't remember that we watched it.
I have no idea. I don't remember.
But, so then that one was no good. Closing out the 70s, and then I'm going to take some more super chats and questions real quick. If you want to tell me your picks for bad Netflix, bad direct-to-video ones, that'll be cool. But closing out the 70s will be, actually not quite closing out this block right here, will be The Nun, the most boring horror movie of the year. I don't think it's the worst horror movie of the year. Obviously, I've got a couple lower down on the list. Just boring. Just takes so long. Like, I after the movie happened, after I watched it, I was like, what happened in that movie? Because there's like 5 things that happen in the whole movie. It's like, they go to this castle, it's creepy, and then we're in the third act. Or it gets creepy, they're there for a while, and then the third act. Just like you get exposition, but there's like so little that happens in this long run out time that it's just boring and tedious. So much so that like I literally don't even have very many criticisms because that's all I can say. Like nothing happens and then you're bored for an hour and then the climax happens and because you didn't care about anyone, it's just over. So there you have it. We've got The Nun closing out this section. Do we have any comments, questions, defenses? What were some of their picks for worst Netflix or direct-to-video movies?
Let me do the super chats first.
Oh, cool. Let's do super chats. Thank you guys so much.
Josh Gaming said your channel is awesome.
You're awesome, Josh Gaming.
Shadow with Glasses said, I smashed an egg on my head at the stroke of midnight. And what will happen if Endgame fails? Will the MCU die?
Well, so Shadow Glasses asks, smash an egg on his head. Creative choice. What will happen if Endgame fails? You have to define fails, because Endgame is going to make over $1 billion no matter what. Like, no matter what, they don't need to put a trailer out, and Endgame will make over $1 billion. It just will. Financially, it's going to happen. So the question is, what will happen if the movie is just a train wreck and bad? If it is, they'll be at movie number 22. Yeah, they'll be at movie number 22, and it'll be the first one that was negative on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, it'll be a problem. they'll have to do some course correction because it's such an event movie to bomb. But it's just you can't really kill the MCU with one movie, even if it's the biggest movie. You can't kill it with one movie because it's so powerful. It's so many franchises, and with this movie in particular, we don't know what's going to happen. But it's a bit of a reboot. It's a bit of a not reboot, but reset, because we're pretty sure some of these franchises are coming to the end. They're trying to bring some of these new guys in to take over, and so they can continue on even if this one messes up. So I don't like. It's a movie that's almost danger proof because it's going to make money, and afterwards they're good to go even if they get a bad review. But with the Russo's track record, the Russo's track records and Kevin Feige's track record, that's not going to happen.
Bruce Wayne says, what did you think about Revenge?
I haven't seen Revenge. Revenge actually debuted at Fantastic Fest 2017, which is I don't know if it actually debuted there, but it played at a film festival I was at in 2017, and I just missed it. It was kind of a weird week. Several things kind of went down, and so I missed some things I really wanted to see at it. And so it's a movie I just haven't seen. If I had seen it, you'd obviously get my take on it during this video.
Rich Reviews says, worst out of Netflix is Extinction, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, and Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle.
Luckily, I have seen none of those. Some of my coworkers saw Extinction, though, and they were telling me about it, but...
Worst direct-to-video is Leprechaun Returns.
I saw a bunch of the Leprechaun. Some people want me to rank all the Leprechaun movies, and I'm like, I don't. That's a franchise that even its high points. The high point is that Jennifer Aniston is in it. Like that's the high point, and from there it's not so high.
Someone thought the Princess Switch was bad.
That's what you said, right?
No, that's not what I said.
What did you say?
I said I enjoyed it. It was cute.
What's the one that you said was bad?
I mean, almost all of them. They're holiday videos. You have to have a totally different standard for those.
That's like me watching action movies. It's like it's a different standard when I watch them than when you watch them.
Oh, the wedding one.
Oh,
the second one to the Christmas Prince.
Okay, gotcha.
Last year they had one, and then they released a second one this year. Someone said Tremor 6 is bad, which is a disappointment because I haven't seen it yet.
Any other comments, super chats, anything? Questions?
No, just more votes for their least favorite movie of the year.
Any picks? Think we haven't mentioned?
Wrinkle in Time.
So Wrinkle in Time. Thanks for mentioning that. We didn't watch it because we heard it was terrible. We've all read the book. I read the book growing up, and so we had plans to go watch it as a family. Like your Hawaiian cousin was going to come to town, and we were going to watch it. And then we just heard horrible things, and we're like, we don't want our hearts ripped out of our chests. We can't handle this. And so we didn't watch it. So it probably would be either worst or most disappointing for me, but that did not happen. Thank you guys for mentioning that one. Real quick, we're going to take a 2-minute break here. You might hear us talking in the background, though, but we're going to do 2-minute break. I'm going to put an ad on the screen just so I could have a break and run off to the bathroom real quick. Sean Chandler from the past here again, tagging in once again. Hey, I guess you guys are in the future, so tell me down below in the comment section, are comic book movies still popular? Has a lot changed in the last 3 hours? Sometimes the world can change very quickly, and maybe I'm behind the times. With all that said, real quick, if you enjoy these amazing shirts in my videos, if you talk movies too much, if you want to drink coffee and let the people around you know I talk movies too much, consider heading on over to my merch store and buying some merch. Just so you guys know, every single month at my merch store, there's a sale. It's normally around the 20th, and I try and share that information because I'd rather you get the shirts cheaper. I'd rather you get them and get them cheap. I feel bad when you guys buy them at full price. So head on over there. Whenever there's a sale, it's 30% off. That means t-shirts are only $14. A bunch of the shirts that I wear in my videos, kind of the quirky, weird ones with, like Thanos from Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and the shirts that you guys go, where did you get that weird shirt from? They're in my merch store. I didn't necessarily design all of them, but they're all on the TeePublic store, so I kind of put them on my little site there. So you can find those shirts that I buy from their store in my merch store. It's in that link down below. Like I said, there's sales every single month, so you don't need to rush over there necessarily today, or if you want to. That's awesome too. But normally there'll be a sale about the third week of the month, and I'll let you guys know about that and all the fun shirts. In the year 2019, I'm in the year 2019. I forgot that. I'm filming this morning, literally. So we're in 2019. I plan on designing a bunch of new shirts. I've got an idea for one that says, I talk Marvel too much. I talk comic book movies too much. I have a bunch of different ideas for directions to go. And I kind of want to make it like every month putting out some new designs. So check back in on that merch store. Hopefully during this little break, I was able to maybe run to the bathroom, get something to drink, maybe just make out with my wife for a little bit. Who knows exactly what went on during this particular break, unless the mics were running and you could hear us in the background rolling around on the floor, in which case I apologize for that. That was inappropriate behavior on my part. But with that said, I better get back to talking movies with you guys. Back to you, Sean in the present.
Thank you so much, Sean from the past. Now we are back in the present, and did we have one real quick super chat, did you say?
I did. Oh, we got two. We just got to say it.
Real quick, let's go through them.
All right. Aiden Kern Kensler, respect and love, Sean. Thoughts on Harry Potter?
So I did a whole series where I went through all the movies. I've only read the first book, and I did that since going through the series. It's just not for me. I can enjoy them enough, but having not gone through the books, the movies are actually really confusing. They leave out a lot of really important stuff, and they're tricky movies to watch if you haven't gone through the books. And so, but my full thoughts on the whole deal is in there. I kind of, probably in 2019, I'm going to go through all the books probably slowly throughout the course of the year, because I'm intrigued enough, and enough people have indicated I should do that.
Including your wife.
Including my wife. And so, yeah, and I've got ranking videos and everything out there.
Josh Gaming says, my favorite movies ever are Die Hard and Seven.
Those are great picks. Die Hard's amazing. I'm not as much of the David Fincher guy because he's so cynical that it's a bit much for me. But obviously great movies though. It's not saying it's a bad movie, just not necessarily a movie for me. All right, we have moved into our next section. That means we've got a cool little bumper. So I've been having fun with some graphics, as you can tell, as we go into this next section. These are just kind of movies that are just not good. They're not horrible for the most part. I wouldn't say they're just not what they should be. And some of them are big movies, some of them not so big movies, but not as good as they should be. So if you want to keep talking about just kind of mediocre blah movies, what are your blah movies of the year? Coming in at number 70 is Insidious: The Last Key. Just in general on this movie, seemed like they basically took a cool side character in our old lady, and then they promoted her to the lead in the movie. And I just don't know that works. Like sometimes not every character works as the hero. And so that's kind of an odd direction. Actually, one of the bad guys in this is Evil Brent. So the Acevedo, he's the bad guy on Arrow the last two seasons. Acevedo, he looks a lot like a guy that we're great friends with, so we call him Evil Brent. And this guy almost always plays bad guys in movies. And so,
our friend's name is Brent.
Yeah, our friend's name is Brent. And so we call this actor, his last name's, I believe, Acevedo, Evil Brent. So he's in it. It's just kind of like a throwaway horror movie that didn't really work for me, and it was kind of dull. But I got to put a disclaimer on this one. This is my worst movie experience of the year. The worst theater experience. I went in to go see it opening night, and horror movies, especially January horror movies, have the worst audiences. And I think that's a fairly universal thing in the Estados Unidos, is that because it's a lot of high schoolers that show up with all their friends to watch the movie, and they're just bad audiences. So I show up to this movie in January of last year, and in the front row in front of me is a group of high school guys watching porn in the theater, like, and just laughing like, I can't believe this is going on. And the movie starts, and they're not terribly behaved. Like they're not just awful. And about halfway through the movie, the plot shifts a little bit, and there's some girls that are, say, held captive. And one of them is wearing like a skin-tight shirt and laying on a table. And so whenever it shows her, it's accentuating her bosoms, as drawing attention to them. And every time it would cut to this girl and you could see her shapes, these guys would play some audio file on their phone. There was something implying wanting to have sex with their masturbation, something like that. Something awkward. Really, and at first I was like, what is that? Is someone saying something? What am I hearing? Is that someone's phone? And then I pieced it together like, oh no, these guys are like being unbelievably obnoxious. And I'm like, the whole time I'm thinking, all right, should I go out and like report them? I can't miss the end of the movie because I need to review it and I need to rank the series. And so I ended up just sitting through it. So it might have spoiled the experience of the movie anyway, because these guys are acting this way. In retrospect, I wish I would have like created a confrontation. I'm not normally real confrontational in real life. I need to do more of that stuff because these guys were a bunch of skinny high schoolers that I think it would have been fun to try and pick a fight with. Because that would have been a better memory than just these guys ruining a not good movie anyway. But so there you have it. It was just like a real frustrating little movie for me. Coming in at number 69 is Life of the Party, also known as alternative title. Melissa McCarthy bangs a hot college guy would be another title for the movie. It's a throwaway Melissa McCarthy movie. They didn't know what it wanted to be. Does it want to be a movie about a PG-13 movie about a mother and daughter going to college together, or does it want to be a Melissa McCarthy behaving badly movie? It doesn't know which one of those it is, and so it just turns into this movie that's like the heartfelt moments that just doesn't really work, and then the Melissa McCarthy behaving badly stuff really doesn't work. And I'm pretty sure it was written by her and her husband. And it's like the plot line literally involves Melissa McCarthy being like this loser mom that goes back to college when she's dumped by her husband for a younger person. And so she goes off to college with her daughter, and then she becomes like really like all the people in the sorority house really like her. So they give her a makeover and she goes to a party, and suddenly she's like the life of the party and everybody likes her. And this super hot college guy sees her and falls in love with her because she like put on normal clothes. She put on non-mommy clothes and put makeup on. And so suddenly this hot guy wants to bang her constantly. And that's like the plot of the second half of the movie. It's just like this outrageous, like, I'm not buying this. Like, what are we doing right now? Like And then they tie it into some other things later in the movie as a way. I mean, just it's not good. It wasn't as bad as some people said it was. There's some things about it that I think could have been an okay movie if they'd focused more on the daughter goes to college. If they didn't want to do the mommy behaving badly, if they had just done mother-daughter, and there's a way in which a mom can be well liked amongst college students because she brings a certain maturity to things, so people like the balancing factor to it. And so there's something that could have been interesting there that could have been worked nicely. And instead, we get Melissa McCarthy bangs hot college guy, the movie. Not so good. Number 68 is Cloverfield Paradox. So I really enjoyed the second Cloverfield movie. I think it's really good. It was written by Damien Chazelle. Clever, tight tension. The first one, it's a found footage movie, one of the better ones of the genre. So I don't think it's a great movie, but it's a neat movie to exist out there. I like the setup, and I like the idea of this world that they're creating. Cloverfield Paradox, however, did you watch this one with me, right? Cloverfield Paradox?
Is that the one on Netflix?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Do you remember anything about it?
Yes.
What do you remember?
It's a plot. It's a spoiler.
Okay. Don't want to do that then. But it's one of these movies that it feels like, and I'm almost positive this is true, and I think they've said this is true, they made a movie and they went, oh, that could be a Cloverfield movie. That can explain the Cloverfield universe. Oh, but yeah, so don't we need to tie it together? Yeah. And so then I think it was Donald Longu, they shot him doing some like news reports, and then they just cut it into the movie. And that's literally, they cut in these little news reports, and that was their way of tying it back to the other Cloverfield movies. And without that, what you would have is just kind of a generic sci-fi movie with a bad set of rules, because it's just weird sci-fi things happening because the reactor did things and it messed up the space-time continuum. Therefore, stuff can happen that's weird and creepy. And that's like their explanation for everything. And so it just be like a real sloppy, messy, lazy sci-fi movie. But because it's Cloverfield, but because they did this gimmick where they put the trailer out for it during the Super Bowl and they said, the movie's on Netflix right now. Watch it after the big game. Because they did that, suddenly this very sloppy, lazy, forgettable sci-fi movie is something we're actually talking about. And so it's just not a good movie. It didn't live up to the franchise. It didn't deliver the answers it should have delivered. So a real disappointment. Number 67, I didn't know where to put this one on the list, but The Death of Superman. This is the animated DC movie. It's a fairly fairly accurate translation of the Death of Superman comic book to the film, except updated for like the new 52 or whatever the current version of DC is. And so it's the story pretty tight with character updates for the current era of the comic books. And it's a comic book that I don't think works well translated directly to the screen, because it's not a particularly deep plot. It's literally Doomsday shows up and everyone gets beat up by him, and then Superman fights him for a long time, and then the title happens. And so I didn't buy it. So I mean, maybe I didn't know where to put it on the list, because it's one of those movies that's like, this feels incomplete without the Reign of the Superman, which comes out in 2 weeks or something like that. I might go to the Phantom event with both movies and see if I like it more. But as for just a standalone, it's not very high on my list, obviously. Number 66, The Maze Runner, The Death Cure. This is just kind of a forgettable apocalyptic one. I don't even remember what I didn't care for all that much about. I just remember being like, okay, every post-apocalyptic cliche is happening in this movie. It's big, but it just feels like it's not coming together. Once again, it's a movie that's like, what happened in that movie again? It answered everything, it resolved things, but didn't it kind of undo certain plot points and change certain characters? And so it just didn't connect with me. It didn't create memories in my head other than post-apocalyptic stuff that's not particularly great. So it's not too high up on my list. Number 65 is Peppermint. This one was a disappointment for me. Most people saw the trailer for Peppermint and went, oh my goodness, a crappy revenge movie. Oh my goodness, Girl Punisher, what are we doing? Oh my god. Most people did that. I saw it and I went, look, Jennifer Garner's the Punisher and she's killing people. This is going to be awesome. Probably because I'm stupid. But it's also from the director of Taken. And I think Taken's one of the great B movies of the last 10 years. I mean, I guess we are at 10 years ago that it came out. It's just an efficient, sets up an urgency, and we just go on this adventure and it works. It seemed to understand what I want out of this type of movie. Peppermint, however, fails to understand what I want out of this movie. Like the trailer for the movie sets up perfectly the payoffs that I want, which is, in a movie like this, you want to set up a series of guys that are like, oh, I hate that guy, I hate that guy, I hate that guy. And you watch the trailer for this and it walks through these faces of like, these are gangbangers, this is a lawyer, this is a judge, I want to see them die. That's not really how the movie plays out. It says it not in the satisfactory sense. It like montages through the thing that you're like, yes! And then it moves on to like the crappy sequel to Peppermint. And it's like, let's get the real people behind it that you don't really care about as much as the people that they personify the evil in it. That's what the personified evil is, the person I want to see pay, not the person off in the background pulling strings. That's not as interesting. And so the movie very much disappointed me. And this is a movie that for me, the bar's pretty, like, I don't need a great movie to really enjoy Peppermint, because it's my genre, because I enjoy watching Jennifer Garner shoot people in the face, punch people in the face, kick people in the face, run over their face with a truck, torture their face, electrocute their face, anything that involves her causing pain to people. I'm probably going to enjoy it, and this movie didn't do that quite as well as it should have. Number 64, and this one could be a controversial pick, could be disappointing for some people, but Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Some people say this one should be bottom 10, some people want it up at top 10. This is another one of those ones that people are all over the place. The more I thought about it, the less I liked the movie. The big thing for me is that Jurassic Park, the magic of the franchise is, look, dinosaurs have come alive. Look, dinosaurs are back. Look, technology has made it so we can believe dinosaurs are there on screen. That's the appeal. The idea of the escapism of, what if I could go to a park that had dinosaurs? What if I could go to a world that had dinosaurs? And then, of course, seeing the reality of what would happen if there's a park of dinosaurs. That's the fun of it. Not watching dinosaurs go extinct. Not watching our favorite dinosaurs from the first movie. Like they mirror certain shots from the first movie of dinosaurs on a grassy field and like, oh, look, dinosaurs are alive, with dinosaurs in that same field being covered in lava and dying. Like, oh, that's not fun. Like, that's the opposite of what I want from a Jurassic Park movie. It like betrays the appeal of this franchise to me. And so that was disappointing that that's the direction that they went with it. So that for me, that was the big thing that kind of killed it. And then the second half of the movie, it's like, okay, we went from being in like these exotic locations with dinosaurs to like running around a house. That's kind of weird. That's not the best direction to go with this. And so I just, all in all, it just did not deliver what I want from the franchise and set plot lines up that I was like, this is where we're going with this. I don't know that I think this is a good idea. So unfortunately I have to be kind of negative on that one. Number 63. This is a fun day for my family. Not necessarily a great movie, but Hotel Transylvania 3. I mean, this movie's not as bad as it could have been. It's just by nature of it. There's a lot more base humor that I'm interested in watching myself or like wanting my kids to watch. When one of like the marquee jokes of the trailer is there's two people sitting at a table and then it goes and then Adam Sandler goes, "Was that you?" Like that's like the one that they were like, "Oh, I know what's funny. I know what people will get people to the theater." The fart joke about him having digestive issues when he eats certain things, when he eats garlic, like he farts. Like that's a great joke, right? No. And so, for me, just not my thing exactly. Not as bad as it could have been, but it's the type of movie that relies on fart jokes, dance sequences, pop music, just very low level, obvious stuff to draw kids in. And so, just not really for me. I haven't seen the first two movies either, so... Coming in at number 62. Maybe the most controversial film on this list. The one that everyone is all over the place on this one. So we'll probably have some discussion about this. Be sure to put your comments. Wifey, be reading for the different takes on this one. At number 62, Venom. I don't know what... This is so tricky. And I do apologize. I've reached the point in time, if I talk long enough, my nose starts to itch really badly. And we've reached that point in time. So I keep touching my nose. I'm trying to fight it. And I'll keep trying harder. And I'm delaying talking about Venom. So Venom for me was a movie that I wasn't bored with. There's things about it that I think are really good. The movie is a proof of concept. Like, hey, look, you can do Eddie and Venom talking to each other. You can pull that off. It works on a bunch of those levels. And that's why a bunch of you love it. That's why a bunch of you have it in the top 10 spot. I get why some of you love the movie. And then some of you think it's like the worst movie of the year because there's plot issues, there's story issues, there's tone issues, there's timeline issues related to the event at the beginning of the movie and certain things trying to travel to another place. There's not an explanation as to why that happens at the same time as what happens with the Eddie Brock plotline, because there's a big time jump in there. So why do these two things happen at the same time? The movie, to my knowledge, doesn't explain that. That's a big plot hole. That's a massive plot hole that all they had to do is put in a little line of dialogue to explain it. They didn't. So there's a bunch of like big issues with the movie in regards to storytelling, plot, tone. There's just some weird stuff where they let Tom Hardy just go for it, and he's like holding his finger like, "You mean aliens like E.T. phone home?" And you're like, I can't believe that they're having Tom Hardy do that. That made it into the movie. And then you have these moments where you're watching Venom beat guys up, and the part where they're supposed to go in the elevator or jump off the building, and Venom wants Eddie to jump off the building. Eddie won't do it, and he takes the elevator. Like, there's moments in it that are really funny that really work. And so much like The Predator, I have a hard time choosing where to put this one on my list because it's entertaining. It definitely has fun to it, but as a movie, it has problems. In which case, if that doesn't bother you, cool. I'm not trying to convince you not to love it. You can love it all you want. I just wish that we could acknowledge, yeah, it has problems. I just don't care. I'm going to do that with Aquaman. When we get to Aquaman, I'm going to do that a little bit. I just wish we could all acknowledge a movie like, yeah, it has fun, but it has bad. Like I wish we could just do that, as opposed to attacking people when they can't just forgive certain things. And some people will ask me, why can you forgive Aquaman stuff and not Venom's? Well, because I watched Venom and I just kept going back to, like, I'm pulled out of this movie by how bad some of the plot story issues are. Whereas Aquaman, I wasn't. I could see it happen. I could see, like, that's probably not consistent. I just don't care. And that's the subjective nature of movies. Sometimes you care and sometimes you don't. There's not always a clear, logical explanation for it. There's just that experience of, like, this movie pulled me in and this one didn't so much. So Venom for me kind of ends up in that spot. Real quick, I'll talk about Skyscraper, and then you guys can start talking about Venom. Excuse me, number 61, Skyscraper. Then we'll get to our Venom conversation if you want to cue all that up. Skyscraper for me, I said this in one of my other videos, this is the most mediocre movie of the year to me. It's not incompetently made. It's not like I was watching it and was like, this plot it doesn't fit together. It's just a movie with nothing about it that's distinctive or unique that makes it pop, that would make me go, oh man, I can't wait to watch that one again. It's a movie jam-packed with like mediocre blockbuster stuff. And that's a problem. Because you can watch Venom, and it's like spicy food. Some people eat spicy food, and they go, oh, I love this. I just want more of this. And just put more spice on top of it. I don't care if it's a culinary expertise or excellence. It's just that I love the kick of this meal. And other people eat the spicy food, and they're like, this tastes disgusting. All I taste is jalapeno in my mouth. And they're like, no, they won't even eat it. All because as soon as they get a whiff of the jalapeno and the hotness, they don't want it. And so it's divisive by nature because it has so much stuff going on in it. And some people love that and some people don't. Skyscraper, it's just devoid. It's bland. It's like, okay, this is properly cooked. It's seasoned, but at the most generic way possible. Here is generic blockbuster stuff for you. Who's the most, the guy that's just in tons of blockbusters these days that has charisma? The Rock. What's a premise for a movie? Terrorists take over a building. Okay, that's generic plot movie. And it's what the whole movie feels like that. And then what's the way to make a movie that can get the most people to show up? We'll put it PG-13 rating on it. So get sell more tickets. We'll set it in part of Asia so that it can have elements to appeal to the Asian audience. That's what the movie feels like to me. Like just a bunch of studio heads constructing the most generic blockbuster movie that they can make for the year. That's what it is. And I went in excited because I'm dumb and naive, thinking, okay, I could really enjoy The Rock doing Die Hard. I can be fine with that. And we're going to get higher up on this list, and we're going to see Dave Bautista do Die Hard, and I'm going to be much more friendly on that one. This one just had nothing to it that I liked. I watched it, nothing I hated, nothing I loved. It was just that bland, generic middle. And so it's interesting. This one, like the most mediocre, bland movie of the year, Skyscraper, right next to Venom, the most divisive movie of the year. With that said, what do we got?
It's hilarious. It's just my favorite thing that's happened so far.
Yeah, I was a man. As soon as we get to Venom, it's gonna be interesting. What do we got?
We called it what? Bingo. Venom is good in my opinion. No.
Yeah.
I mean, just everybody. I agree. Like so many.
It's
people,
everything.
It's everything. It's like you're spot on. I totally support you. And then
Yeah.
you're the worst. That's my second favorite movie of the year.
And so, like when I did this past week, I did my biggest disappointment, biggest surprise, worst and best. And on all four of those videos, people were like, "Where's Venom?" All four videos, people were like, "Where is Venom? Why isn't Venom on this list?" Worst of the year. People were like, "This is the worst. You need to have this video here." Best of the year. Where's Venom? Venom's my favorite movie of the year. Biggest surprise. Oh, I thought I was going to hate Venom, and I loved it. But biggest disappointment. I thought I was going to love Venom, and I hated it. All four videos, people were like, "Where is Venom?" And for me, it's not none of those ones. It's kind of just in that middle of the road. Like, I can appreciate it. I can dislike it. I can all of it. But yeah.
I think my favorite is, in all caps, "We are Venom," and then someone else later is like, "We are not Venom." It's just everyone's on polar opposite sides here. It's pretty hilarious.
Any super chats or questions?
Yes. Let me get
What do we got?
Jamie Miller. I think he's saying "top guy" to you. And by the way, the best way to say Yorkshire is to say it like Yorkshire. He spelled it out.
Okay.
So thank you for that.
So not Yorkshire.
Nope, not like that.
Sorry,
Y-O-R-K.
I apologize. I'm from Central Texas.
S-H-U-R. Sure, Yorkshire. Shadow with Glasses. How did you feel about Big Chungus? It was the best. 11 out of 10.
Big Chungus?
There's a lot of talk about it.
Big Chungus? Tell me some other things while I look up Big Chungus.
I tried to look it up. It looks like a Bugs Bunny. I have no idea. The Cyber Bee says, have you seen The Italian Job? If you haven't, you should.
So I don't know what Big Chungus is. I have not seen it. No clue what you're talking about. So unfortunately, I don't have thoughts on it. I'm not, say Italian Job?
Yes.
Is that the one with Marky Mark?
Uh-huh.
Because I'm thinking the bank job. There's also
and someone in here thought you invented Marky Mark, the nickname.
No. No. Marky Mark is he was an underwear model, and his brother, he was actually a founding member of the New Kids on the Block, but he was like out very quickly, and his brother Donnie was in New Kids on the Block. And so then when Marky Mark decided to become a rapper, there's this song called Good Vibrations out there, Good Vibrations, by Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, and you can see Marky Mark doing 90s rap stuff as this young guy, and then you can watch videos out there of him as an underwear model. There's so many things of Marky Mark from the 90s that are just fantastic. But I did not invent that. I have seen The Italian Job. I enjoy it. I don't think it's great, but I enjoy it. I haven't seen the old one with Michael Caine. I've seen the one from 15 years ago.
Rich Reviews, do you believe that Netflix movies have the opportunity to go above and beyond the current theatrical distribution model, but why do the movies suck?
I think that the Netflix model has, they're doing a great job of finding a way to bring back the era of the movie star. They put Kurt Russell in a Christmas movie, and enough people viewed it for it to be a movie that sold over $200 million worth of tickets in its first week. That's massive. They found a way to get people to watch movies. Bird Box comes out this week. No marketing, and everyone's talking about it. We haven't seen it yet. We almost watched it. She's scared to watch it because she doesn't watch Kids in Peril. So I haven't seen it yet. And everyone wants me to watch it. Everyone wants me to talk about it. 2 weeks ago, nobody knew what Bird Box was. No one had heard of Bird Box 2-3 weeks ago.
And everyone
is talking about it. More and more people are talking about it. So they've invented this new model that's fantastic. What they're figuring out what to do with movie stars and stuff. Extinct, the Michael Pena one. All my coworkers were talking about it, and they'd never seen a trailer. They put it on Netflix and watched it. Why are the movies not good? I'm not quite sure why the movies aren't as good as they should be yet, but they have Roma. Rich Reviews, I know you don't like Roma, but everyone else likes Roma, and it's getting fantastic news. So they're figuring it out. So I think it's going to change the game, and it is changing it. It is drastically changing the way people talk movies. What do we have next? Questions, comments, or anything like that?
I don't have any more.
All right. Any final thoughts from people?
Someone wants you to sing all stars from Shrek. Sorry, I can't talk.
I don't know what wait, All Star from Smash Mouth?
But it's from Shrek.
It's painful. All Star is a Smash Mouth song that's from Mystery Men, several years before Shrek. It is from Mystery Men. It's from Smash Mouth. Oh, painful. This is why I won't rank the Shrek movies. First off, I haven't seen them. Second off, because it's making people think that these songs are from Shrek and they're from before Shrek. It is ruining pop culture for everyone born at a certain point in time. With that said, I've got a little ad for you. Take a little break so I can get a drink, and we'll see what happens. Sean Chandler from the past here once again with my kids to ask them a few questions. All right, what movies next year are you excited about? We got Toy Story 4?
Yeah.
That sound good?
Yeah.
We've got a Lion King sort of deal coming out. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Dumbo, the one with the elephant that can fly?
Yeah.
You guys are really insightful on this stuff. You're really good at it. Captain Marvel, the one with the girl superhero? That sound good, Chloe? What about Avengers Endgame?
Oh, yeah, that sounds good.
Oh, that does sound good to you. Spider-Man Far From Home, a new Spider-Man movie's coming out.
Like Spider-Man to Spider-Verse.
Well, this one's like Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah, kind of like it. That sounds really good.
See? This guy gets it. He's excited for next year. What about you? You get it too?
Yes.
What are you excited for?
I'm excited for the new Iron Man movie.
The new Iron Man movie. That's cool.
Is there one?
He's going to be in Endgame, so Avengers Endgame. So you're excited for that Endgame movie. Yeah, it could be depressing. That's pretty exciting.
Like that poster.
Oh, yes. There's one over there. All right. With that said, just need a little break for myself. Sean Chandler in the present. Back to you. Oh, I'm back. Sorry about that. It's like staring at the screen. It's like, hey, that's me. Look at me right there. I got a new shirt on. And I was like, forgot. Oh, yeah. The fact that I'm seeing myself means that my little ad break there has ended, and it's time for me to start talking about stuff again. We got a couple new super chats real quick.
We do. We also have a suggestion that you and I should do movies together.
She doesn't want to be on camera is the hold up there. What do we got?
Matt the Geek thought Venom was fun, but not a very good film.
Exactly. Totally agree with you. It's fun on a cinematic, making things level. It has issues. Absolutely, it is fun. What do we got next?
Sorry, I was trying to find the other super chat and I saw someone said, "My life is a lie." No, Shrek.
I'm sorry. Like it's
destroyed
Shrek came out after I graduated, so I'm college age when Shrek came out, and Shrek is not a movie made for college age people like me that had long hair, was in punk bands at the time. Not the movie designed for me. So it's just one of those movies that I missed.
You just destroyed their entire childhood.
What do we have?
Jack Does Climbing 10 wants to know, did you see Maze Runner The Death Cure?
So I just talked about it. You just missed me talking about it literally 5-10 minutes ago, something like that. So if you want to rewatch this broadcast at about an hour and 10 minutes into it, I talk about it. I also have a review on my channel about it. Short answer, I wasn't really a big fan of it. So that's why you just missed it. It's on the lower half of this video. And we got a quick another bumper. And we are back talking about this next section of the video. Coming in at number 60 is The Commuter. So this is this year's Liam Neeson thriller. Every year for the last 10 years, we've gotten the Liam Neeson thriller. This year's was The Commuter. And it's from the same guy that did Non-Stop, the plane movie. And it's the same movie. It's the plane movie except on a commuter train. Just nothing new to the formula, unfortunately. And if we didn't have Non-Stop, this movie might have come out a little bit higher up on the list. Not a ton higher. It's not like a great movie, but it would have been done better for me had it not been the same exact movie with the same types of twists, the same bag of tricks as Non-Stop, which just made it real frustrating to be like, this movie should be better. The fun fact about this movie, though, is that I was invited to see the press screening of it, but it's the week that I got the flu. And if you've been watching since the beginning of the stream, I got the flu at the beginning of the year, and on the third day of the flu, my wife came in and said she was pregnant with our baby. And so, surprise! I didn't get to go see The Commuter because I had the flu. I sent my friend Vincent to go see The Commuter, and my wife informed me as the entertainment back at home in Flu Land, we were having a baby. As for the movie itself, just literally a generic Liam Neeson thriller. Coming in at number 59, we actually just talked about this one, The Christmas Chronicles. This is a movie that relies entirely on the fact that Kurt Russell is in it as Santa to be successful. If you remove that from it, it's just kind of a generic Christmassy made-for-TV movie about kids like, let's try and catch Santa. And they try and catch him like, look, there's Santa. And then shenanigans unfold, they cause trouble. And so then they're off on some hijinks with Santa trying to save Christmas. I mean, it's kind of like, let's swap out the ingredients, but it's any number of other Christmas movies like this. But the thing that makes it interesting is it's Kurt Russell. And so that's a lot of fun to see Kurt Russell do a movie like this, do these types of things. And so all in all, it's actually quite a bit of fun for that reason. Not a great movie, but it's fun to see Kurt Russell in this type of film. I'm sure we'll rewatch this one almost every Christmas with our kids, that kind of thing. And as we talked about just a second ago, this movie's an example of how Netflix has cracked the code of how to make a movie that shapes what everyone's talking about on the internet for like a whole week without any marketing. 2 weeks before Christmas Chronicles came out, nobody would have known what Christmas Chronicles was. A week before it came out, people were like, oh, I think there's a new, I think I saw a trailer on Netflix for a new Kurt Russell movie as Santa. And then it came out and everyone watched it because they turned on to Netflix and oh, I love Kurt Russell. Oh, he's Santa? Oh, I gotta watch this. And so many people watched this movie that had no marketing budget at all. Netflix, you have cracked the code. The movie itself, though, kind of mediocre. Next up at number 58 is Death Wish. Now, a bunch of people that saw this one hated it, and they thought it was bad. So I'm actually going to talk real positive. It's not high on my list. It's not a great film, but I didn't have any real big issues with it. It's just not a particularly fantastic film. It doesn't have anything new to say or anything like that. But if you watch it as a B movie, it's kind of perfectly fine. It's Bruce Willis being a little bit more lively than he's been in anything for 7 years or whatever since Looper. It's like probably the best Bruce Willis since Looper. And, it's a basic setup for an action B movie, which is a wife gets killed, so husband starts killing people in revenge. And that plotline works for me, and this is a good enough version of it. I haven't rewatched it since it was in the theater, but I did buy it, and so one of these days I'll rewatch it. Like I said, not great cinema. It's got some nice gnarly kills a couple times, where just like for the most part, the movie's it's rated R, it's violent, but it's not super graphic for most of the movie. And then suddenly out of nowhere, like brains are spilling out of a guy's head and like bones are smashed out of nowhere. And it's like real, like if you add it up, there's probably less than 10 seconds of gore in the movie. But when they happen, you're like, whoa, that just happened. And it was gnarly. It did what it was supposed to do for me, but it's not a movie that I was like, oh man, that was awesome. So even though it's pretty low, I'm not like hating on the movie or anything like that. It didn't necessarily disappoint me. It just wasn't one that would get higher up on the list for me. At number 57 is a movie that disappointed a lot of you. And it's another one I'm not going to really hate on too much. It's just not a great movie to me. But Pacific Rim Uprising. So I saw people put this in their bottom 10, most disappointing. And everyone else seemed to have this very negative experience with me. For me, I was like, that's fine. It's fine. That was kind of my takeaway. I didn't hate it. There were some plot twists that I didn't think were very good. But in general, as just a kind of throwaway robots fighting each other, robots fighting kaiju movie, it was perfectly fine for me. Perfectly adequate. But at the same time, most other people seem to like have a much higher respect for the original Pacific Rim than I do. Like, oh man, Guillermo del Toro made this amazing movie about robots battling kaiju, and I'm like, yeah, it was a fun movie, but I'm not in that camp that was just like heaping enormous amounts of praise onto the original one. So this one, I mean, it wasn't great, but it also didn't in any way like crush my soul the way it did seem to other people. At number 56, the one that some of you guys wanted me to put in my bottom 10, The Meg. Another movie. Once again, I'm not going to hate on the movie. It's a bad shark movie, but it's a fun bad shark movie. And as I said before, The Meg is probably the Super Bowl of bad shark movies for 2018. You've got the biggest bad shark of the year, in it being the Megalodon, and it's got Jason Statham, who I always like to see on screen. He's always a ton of fun. And so, naturally, it's a pretty fun movie to see. But if you probably don't know this about, some of you might not know this if you didn't watch my review, we got to go see The Meg at a screening out on a lake. And so if you check out my second YouTube channel, it's down in my description. If you click through my About page and stuff on my YouTube channel, you can find the link to my second channel. We did a whole vlog about us going to go see The Meg out on a lake. And we're floating in inflatables, watching this movie, which is a very fun way to watch this movie. It's the first public screening in the whole world. Is a pretty cool little event and day. So maybe that sways us a little bit, but not really. I mean, it's a dumb shark movie. If you want to say it's not as fun as it should be, okay, fair enough. It's not high on my list, but it's dumb and fun enough to be something that when I'm in the mood for a bad shark movie, it's one to put on that I can have a good bit of fun with. You're of the bad shark movie aficionado.
I am.
Tell us about it.
I'm not turning my mic back on because there's an echo.
Even right now?
Well, it's off right now. It's muted.
Well, they can't hear you at all then. Turn it on.
Well, but then there's an echo, right?
Still talk. Right now you're
Okay.
talking, so it's worth it.
Okay. What do you want me to say about the Meg?
Your quick thoughts on it.
I enjoyed it. I wish they'd taken a little bit more risks. I felt like it was pretty safe. And I mean, I'll definitely watch it again. It's almost tame enough to the point that I might consider letting the kids watch it, which is saying something. They just didn't go for a lot of the big kills or scares. Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to sound like I really like it when people are murdered by sharks, but
I do. I love watching people getting murdered by sharks.
But I enjoyed it. I mean, Jason Statham, like you said, and I felt like
that's
good premise. I liked all the stuff about it. It just I wanted a little more than what they gave us.
And that's fair. I think that's probably the big thing that most people would say about it. It's like it was PG-13, so it didn't feel like it had teeth. There wasn't a lot of bite to it. It wasn't as killer as it should have been. The plot line was kind of a bloody mess. And there's a bunch of probably should stop. But like, it's a movie that it should have gone for it more, taken risk. It felt like the safe blockbuster version. And some people, the way I talked about Skyscraper, some people could probably talk about the Meg in that same way. So fair enough on some of that stuff. Okay, I'm Mike 2, so I know what I'll do in the future when you're talking. When we do our.
I'm fine without the mic too.
All right, just you have to talk loud then. Oh, the Meg.
The answer is, of course, she's fine without the mic.
Did you want me to turn? I could put on another ad and we could make out on the floor.
Please stop, that's enough.
You don't want...
gosh, I'm dying. Okay, you got super.
Oh, sorry. We're not there yet. We're not that. You're getting ahead of us.
I was just trying to get you to stop talking.
At number 55, and we're gonna have a threefer of direct-to-video animated movies that I watched with my kids. At number 55 is Scooby-Doo, Batman, the Brave and the Bold. This is kind of an interesting little one because it's very much a Scooby-Doo story, and it's also very much a Batman, the Brave and the Bold. So Batman, the Brave and the Bold, it's been off the air for 10 years now, and so it was a return to that cast, that style with Scooby-Doo. It's not great cinema. It's not like, wow, that was an amazing film or anything like that, but it kind of mixed the two really nicely. It like efficiently felt like both Scooby-Doo and Batman, the Brave and the Bold. And so, did you remember watching this one? Did you have any fun thoughts on it?
I'm sorry, I'm reading the comments. What?
Batman, the Brave and the Bold and Scooby-Doo?
Oh, yeah. No massive interesting comments.
Yeah, it's just one of those ones that's like, yeah, the kids really liked it. And then the DVD, the Blu-ray, it has the old Batman and Scooby-Doo stories. So it's a nice little fun one if you have kids that it's real easy to watch with your kids where it's like, Hotel Transylvania, I don't want to watch with my kids because there's a bunch of burp jokes, bodily function jokes like that right there. And that's what my body was like, I know how I can help make his point even more. I'll burp right now in the middle of his sentence as he talks about Hotel Transylvania. So it's not that stuff. So it's a more movie we'd prefer to watch with our kids than some of the stuff that's just like crass base level humor that our kids really like. Next one up. I don't even have the name. I wrote the wrong name down, but there was a Lego Flash movie that came out this year. There's also, I'll talk about these ones together. Numbers 53 and 54 are the Lego Aquaman movie and the Lego Flash movie. They're all fine. They're all fine. They're kind of fun, but they're basically like watching the cutscenes of a Lego Batman game or Lego. There's all these Lego superhero games. It's like watching the cutscenes for those for 90 minutes. They're not, great plot lines. It's like the most basic version of these characters, but they're trying to put too many plot lines in because they want to put the Justice League in. They want to put everyone in, and so they're cute. They're kind of fun. They're stuff to watch with our kids. It's totally harmless. It doesn't have things we don't like in it, but not amazing cinema either. So it's on here, but not too bad. At number 52, another one I went to go see with my. This is a bunch of kids movies right here. Just kind of hit it. Number 52 is Smallfoot. So I took my kids to go see they really liked it. Every time I get on Vudu and they see the little ad for it these days, like, oh, can we watch Smallfoot? They keep on rewatching it. It just didn't. The character arcs and things in it didn't hit for me. They didn't land. They didn't make as much sense as I thought that they should. It seemed to have a bit of a message that I didn't think was a particularly great message in the way it kind of played out in the end. And so it was a movie that I left it a little bit annoyed. I didn't think it was terrible. Some of the music was kind of catchy, in particular the Under Pressure sequence was like a nice update of Under Pressure that I actually seem to be positive on, which normally updating a David Bowie Queen song I would be pretty negative on. But for whatever reason, I kind of like it was memorable. It stuck in my head. But the movie in general, I just remember feeling like annoyed at some of the messaging that they were trying to put into it. It's like, it's a kid movie about trying to escape some of this stuff. why are we talking about this? And I don't think you have it had a very confusing message about your place in society and your roles. And at parts, it felt like it was making statements about belief system and structures. And I don't think it came together. So it was like making a movie about the lies that people in power tell to try and keep order from the chaos and save people from the dangers of the world. Like, that's a weird story to put in a kid's movie. They don't understand the complexities of a story like that. So it seemed really odd to me to go in that direction. At number 51, and we're about to go to our next set of super chats and questions. If some people have some comments, we're going to pull those up. At number 51 is Braven. And this was a movie starring Aquaman himself, Jason Momoa. It's also got Stephen Lang from Avatar and Don't Breathe, and some other people too. Like it was like a pretty great cast. Direct-to-video one. Avatar. Sometimes I mispronounce things because I want to amuse myself. And I've been talking too long, and so then I have to start amusing myself, and so then I say things like Avatar, which people think I'm dumb because I said that, but I actually did it on purpose. Oh, sorry, you guys are here, right. So Braven, and so it's a direct-to-video action thriller, and essentially a real simple plot about Jason Momoa's character goes out to a cabin with his dad, and then there's a setup where there were some drug dealers had left something there, so they go to go get their stuff, and hijinks ensue, and it's out in the wilderness, and so the idea of it is that Jason Momoa is using his wild outdoorsman knowledge of the woods to take out all of these terrorist drug dealer guys. And this is one that was really frustrating. I would love to be able to say that this movie was like a top 40, top 30 type movie for me, but it just was a little bit too sloppy at times. It was so for me to really like this movie and root for it. I just love movies like this. Like I told you the setup, I was like, oh man, maybe I should rewatch this movie because I love the cast. I love the basic, simple action thriller setup to it. It just got so sloppy at certain points in time in the execution. It didn't have enough of the cool outdoorsy woodsman type stuff and things like that I couldn't go higher, unfortunately. I wish I could, but just some of it. So if you like Jason Momoa and like simple action thrillers, check it out. It's not great, but I think it's on Amazon Prime. It's not as good as it should be, but it's one, if you can check it out cheaply, worth checking out. It's a movie I'll probably watch again. Despite it disappointing me a little bit. You watched it with me. Same thing, Braven with Jason Momoa out in the woods.
Oh, yeah. Mm-mm.
You didn't like it? What? Why didn't you like it?
Why would I like it?
Jason Momoa, outdoorsy. Oh, wild dog! Oh, that's just... Oh, buddy, what are you doing?
The dog's in the back.
Whoa. It's just sometimes you need to do something to get your heart beating. With that said, what do we got from the Super Chats?
Shadow with Glasses says, I was cracking up when you didn't understand Big Chungus. Sorry, it's a meme. Real question, did you see Love, Simon?
I did not see Love, Simon. So if you're talking about a movie that's from this year, obviously, if you go through the video, we'll find out if I've seen it. So some people have kind of asked, have I seen certain movies that, like, if I've seen it, I'll talk about it in this list, but I did not see Love, Simon. Yeah, I just missed it.
Cody Leach. Death Wish at 58, you're dead to me. Just kidding. I love you. Your hair looks nice.
Oh, thank you. I actually took a shower like 25 minutes before this like live stream started. Like I want to be as fresh and on point when we started. And I looked at the time. I was like, I got to get my hair done real quick. If I botch this, because sometimes I botch my hair when I'm trying to do it. Like I'm screwed. And so luckily, it was a day where it was my first take. My hair worked. So that it was really very lucky that this thing wasn't delayed like 20 minutes for me to work on my hair. Cody Leach, a very good friend of mine, one of my best friends here on the YouTube that I met through doing this YouTube stuff. So he's got a great horror focused channel. If you like horror movies, maybe check out his channel. But he really liked Death Wish. He's probably in maybe it's top 10, top 20 of the year. It's way up there for him. It's interesting. It's like when we talked about it, we said about the same things, but where he would rank it, where I would rank it would be pretty different, even though if we talked about it, we'd probably say pretty similar things about it.
They were a big fan of your weird outtake moment.
What's next?
There's so much. Stop saying Big Chungus. I can't find actual comments in here.
I know there's some super chats.
I read the only two that I saw.
There's two more.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Josh Gaming, do you watch True Detective?
No, we've not seen True Detective. We've almost watched it a couple of times. We just haven't. And then season 2, I've heard only bad things about it. Even like Vince Vaughn, Rachel McAdams, like, sign me up for it. But we just didn't end up watching it because I heard bad things about it. In the first season, we watched the first episode and we just didn't. It wasn't that we disliked it. It just wasn't something that we happened to keep watching. And when you fall far enough behind on some of this stuff, sometimes you just miss it. There's a super chat from Rich Reviews. He said, if you were single, would you go on The Bachelor? I do not have enough vulgar curse words that I can say about to the degrees to which I would not go on The Bachelor. I won't even let The Bachelor be watched in my house because I believe in the sanctity of marriage, and I think that show is. It's offensive to me to treat marriage like a game, and it's the sort of thing that I think it's dangerous to society to turn stories into things like that about treating marriage that way and like make out with 24 guys and then hand them a rose. Like that's just, it's like everything I hate about relationships and reality TV and everything in the current time. Do you have any questions, comments, anything?
No, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Some people are saying Aquaman is better than Infinity War. They're curious to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, we'll get to those higher up. We will.
Yeah.
All right, so I got another ad real quick. I don't know if this is one with my kids or one me talking about pushing something on you. I'll take a break real quick, blow my nose, and then by that I mean do cocaine. And so we can... don't make drug jokes. That was a joke. I'm not doing cocaine. That's... Why do they know I'm joking, I think?
Hey, Sean Chandler from the past here one more time to tell you about Sean Chandler Plus over on Patreon. So this is for people that enjoy my channel enough that want to go that extra little mile to get some extra access to me. Essentially, it's a way that I can communicate and talk with people the way I wish I could talk with everyone. But I can't talk to everyone since there's a whole lot of subscribers on my channel now. So over on Sean Chandler Plus, I have some extra reviews that I kind of put out over there that I missed for the putting out on my main channel. But the big thing that I do is that I do live streams most Sundays, whether that's one like this where people can type in questions and kind of get an extra weekly Q&A, or sometimes what I do is I do actual Google Hangouts and I can actually video chat, talk with the people over there. So if that's something you might be interested in, just want to support my channel, maybe want your name at the end of the end credits of my videos or something like that, head on over to my Patreon page to see which kind of perk levels on Sean Chandler Plus might be interesting to you. If you can't support me, that's totally fine. It's just something there for if people want to do that, if people want the opportunity to potentially have a Google Hangout with me, have extra Q&As, it is an option that is available. All right, hopefully Sean Chandler in the present is good to go. Maybe he swapped out some posters, changed shirts, and hopefully has rehydrated himself a little bit so he doesn't pass out in the middle of this massive live stream. Back to you, me in the present.
I am back here in the present. Thank you, past Sean, for allowing me to secretly swap out my posters behind me real quick. All right, we are moving into now the top 50 movies. We're over an hour and a half, so I probably need to pick up the pace on some of this stuff. Did you say you had a question real quick? All right, I'll run my little fun bumper, and then we'll get started. All right, at number 50 is Blockers. Now, to understand where I'm coming from on Blockers, I'll say this. I laughed a lot. This is one of the movies in the theaters I probably laughed at the most this year. The humor absolutely landed. Where this movie, for me, just falls much lower on the list is I thought the message of it was pretty morally reprehensible. The lesson that they were trying to teach in it, because what you have is a plot line about, it's teenagers behaving badly type of thing on prom night, and their parents trying to block them from having sex. It's cock blocker, so they're trying to block their daughters from having sex. And then the movie has this whole message about why is it that we celebrate teenage boys having wild prom nights, but we want to stop girls. And okay, there's validity in the double standards and all of that. The problem with this is it's a storyline about teenagers drinking, doing drugs, and then, while incapacitated, making sexual life choices. In which case, you have teenagers that are doing bad behavior. They're not doing things that it's like, they're doing things that their parents should be concerned about. They're doing things that #MeToo people would say, it's not really when you consent in those types of situations. And the movie's trying to present it as the parents just need to learn to let their kids live. They let the sons live wild. Why are they, when they were teenagers, the husbands, they were acting crazy. Why are they treating their daughters this way? That's a bad message. That's a really bad message to suggest that parents shouldn't be worried about their daughters drinking, doing drugs, and then banging random guys at a party. That's what parents are supposed to do, not trying to stop their kids from doing things like that. Obviously, teenagers do wild things. Parents are supposed to be responsible. Like, it's just, I thought the message was very weird, and like they weren't even stopping to think about, oh wait, this isn't just a statement about the ways boys and girls are being treated. This is actually just really dangerous, bad behavior. We probably shouldn't be just celebrating this and presenting the parents as crazy. And it also gets very lectury at times. Like, there's literal characters in the movie that exist to present the screenwriter's viewpoint on the discrepancy between the way teenage boys and teenage girls are treated. And so these characters will just kind of go on these monologues about all this sort of stuff. And you're like, they're literally preaching at us about morality. They're preaching their morality about us to tell us not to preach about morality. That just drives me crazy. Number 49 is The Equalizer 2. This movie's another one that's kind of, it's like this whole section right here are it's good enough section. It's mediocre. Like, they're movies that aren't as good as they should be, but they're still watchable. There's something good about them. So that's what The Equalizer 2 was for me. It felt like it had too many plot lines going on. They wanted to do he's a local hero guy, and they wanted to do this, but back in the day, this person connected to him is doing this sort of thing, and there's a big conspiracy. And so there's just kind of too many things going on. For a movie with so much stuff that we're moving around quickly, it was really slow-paced at times. But, I didn't hate it. I enjoyed it while I was in the theater, and then I left it, and I was like, okay, that could have been better. They could have tightened that up quite a bit. So it's good enough. And number 48 is one that a bunch of people hated this one. A bunch of people were disappointed by it, but then I've seen a handful of other people saying this is one of their favorites, so we might have some thoughts on this one. But number 48, Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald. Is that how it's pronounced? You're from Europe, so you're a European. That's not true. She's a full-blown Texan, born and raised in Texas. Crimes of Grindelwald, for me, it was, the central plot line of it was simple enough, and I thought it was a good setup to take the characters and adventure from the first movie on a new adventure that's nice, clear, focused, and moving the setting to Europe, I thought provided a context to where it made sense to have some of these additional Easter eggs, a stronger Hogwarts presence in the film. I thought all that was really good, fine about the film. Where this movie just goes off the rails is that there's just 11,000 subplots going on. Like, every character has a subplot and a backstory. And so you're going through the movie and it's like, okay, this is fairly straightforward. And then it just starts layering subplot on top of subplot, and everyone gets a subplot, everyone gets a backstory. And then they start trying to do reveals and trying to explain the mystery of what's going on. And they start like going through all of it. And you discover the reason they gave us all these backstories wasn't because it mattered to the story, but it was all because they wanted to give us red herrings and misdirections and trying to trick us on all this stuff. And so it was like, wait a minute, all of that was thrown into the plotline of this adventure just so you could go, not really, it's this thing over here. And so it's just a movie that had too much stuff. And it felt like someone, perhaps that had a history of writing novels and writing in chapter form, suddenly writing a screenplay and not understanding the differences between a novel and a screenplay. For example, if J.K. Rowling were to do that. That's exactly what this feels like, that her weaknesses as a screenwriter are very much on display here, and she tries to do what you can do in a novel in a movie, and it doesn't work very well. There's this huge section in the middle of the movie that's like 15 minutes long, where it's like they push pause on the main plot line and just give you backstory for 15 minutes, and then they push play and we continue back on our main storyline, and then they push pause again to give you more backstory for 10 more minutes, and you're like, what just happened? Like, they had an hour and 15 minutes of main plot line, but they wanted a 2 hour and 30-minute movie, so they just threw in an extra hour, 45 minutes or whatever of backstories and stuff just to like pad it out or something. It was very odd. So I didn't hate it. It wasn't awful. There's some really good ideas in the third act, actually, that I kind of really dug. And then there's all of the stuff that just felt like just too much. Coming in number 47 is Ocean's 8. This is one that I didn't mind. I just say, like, yeah, that's a good movie. That'd be my take on it. The gender swap stuff doesn't bother me in movies like this, where you can have a reason for it, like, hey, it's his sister, and so, hey, let's just do a little bit different. So it has a little bit more of a feminine flair to it, and kind of the focus of the plot lines and the way the heist works out with jewelry and things like that. I thought all that was good. It's fun to watch this cast together. It doesn't have the spark and the magic of the George Clooney Ocean's 11, the original one. The director doesn't have the distinction of Steven Soderbergh and having a this very unique style to what he does. So it doesn't really pop, but it's a good enough movie. But you watched that one with me. You've rewatched it.
I'm sorry, which one?
Ocean's 8.
Yeah.
Like you dig it.
I dig it.
You rewatched it like 5 days ago.
Yeah, I like it. It's just a fun heist movie and enjoyable characters, and I don't know. It's just a decent little movie.
All right. Decent little movie. Coming in at number 46, another decent little movie, Tomb Raider. One of the greatest video game movies of all time. Well, still only number 46 on this list. Tomb Raider. I thought it was a fun little adventure. It's not a movie that it's particularly memorable. It doesn't have a lot of distinct flavor to it, but there's not a lot of things I hated about it either. I thought it worked well enough as a way to kind of have bring in the world of, not the mystical per se, but fantastical type things into a more grounded setting. I thought there was a good excuse for some of that stuff. There was elements that were straight out of the video games. Like, so it was having played the reboot of, I haven't played the old version, but I played the 2013 version of it. So scenes from that are like brought directly onto the screen. So a lot of that stuff worked for me pretty well. And so I had fun with it. But once again, it's this whole section right here. I'm going to say a lot of the same stuff, which is like, they're fine. They're enjoyable enough, not particularly memorable. And that's what Tomb Raider is. Next couple are actually a little bit more interesting. Coming in at number 44 is Hotel Artemis. Now, this is a movie that was tricky to place because of it's kind of an odd, quirky film. It felt a little bit to me like Reservoir Dogs if it was a slight sci-fi film mixed with The Continental from the John Wick movies. So it's like this very weird kind of set 10 years in the future, so it's a little sci-fi. It's all mostly in this one location with characters in this underworld interacting with each other. It's not the Hotel Continental like in John Wick, but it's a hospital that functions kind of like that, but it's a hotel in its own way. So a pretty cool cast to it. It's not as good as it could be. There's things about it that aren't great, but it has it's so weird and unique that it's interesting to me, that it kind of places not too bad on my list for that reason, even though it has some pretty big faults, but it works out okay for me. Similarly, same category as this one, at number 43 is Kin. This is a movie that I know some people that saw it hated it, and some people really liked it. And once again, it's because it's an original sci-fi story that kind of combines this bunch of stuff. At the core of it, it's like a road trip movie about a family running from James Franco, who's this crazy guy in another weird James Franco role. And it's also like a sci-fi movie setting up this big world. And the way they're tied together is awkward and kind of clunky. And the kid's running around with this ray gun. And then there's these big twist reveals at the end that don't really tie into the main plot line, but kind of resolve some things. So it's a very odd film that some people will watch and be like, what was that? Like, why is the movie about this road trip if you've got all of this going on? I mean, it's like if the Terminator was about not Sarah Connor on the run with Kyle Reese, but Sarah Connor on the run with some other person, and they're on the run, and then you have these big plot twists about all these robots and stuff at the very end of the movie. Like it's like that of like, why would you not tell the story just about it's an odd movie, but it's interesting because it's such a weird mix of different genres tied together. And so if you want an original movie that's weird and strange in the way things tie together, maybe you should check out Kin. So I had fun with it while being frustrated by it, and I still don't really know what I think about it. Even though I've seen it a couple times and have been thinking about it for several months, and I still can't land on what I fully feel on it. Number 42 is Peter Rabbit. This is one I didn't know where to put it on the list. I'm not the target audience. There's some nice charm to it. There's some things about it that kind of annoyed me. And having watched it, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, I don't remember much about it. Peter Rabbit. What's your take on it?
Not a fan, but some of that was the context under which we saw it.
Okay, that's diving deep on it. What didn't you like about it?
Well, I mean, like I said, a lot of it has to do with my attitude when I go into a movie. So I wasn't like we just found out that day we were gonna have to put our dog down probably. So I was like, let's go to a movie. It was all right. I mean, I like that guy and I like that girl, the two lead people, and the guy who did Peter Rabbit. I can't remember his name right now, but he's funny. But it just wasn't like, man, I really it wasn't very fresh, I guess.
It just felt. It's maybe it just felt like kid movie stuff.
Yeah, it was just a movie. It wasn't a terrible movie. I didn't hate it. It just didn't leave an impression.
Yeah, there's a rabbit that wants to go somewhere and they get in a fight. There's neighbors that are quarreling.
It's a little weird too because of the books. The books are very pastel-y and chill, and so it was weird to take that type of children's book and turn it into a movie and like all of a sudden it's a hokey slapstick humor stuff.
All right, real quick, I'm going to do one more movie and we'll take some of your questions. If you guys can throw your picks for most mediocre movie, because that's what we're talking about right now. If you can throw some of those in there, that would be cool. But as for number 41, the Andre the Giant documentary. It's good. Wasn't fantastic. It didn't blow my mind or anything like that. But they put out a documentary on HBO about Andre the Giant, which actually his name is Andre and he's a giant, so that's kind of interesting. And so it's just fun to see his backstory on what he was actually like in person and how he became a wrestler and all these little fun details about him. While not being like the greatest thing I've ever seen or anything like that. He could burp apparently really loud, so I just wanted to share that. He was apparently known for his big burps and his massive farts. Like, that's one of the things I learned from this documentary. Like, he would do these farts that would be like 20 seconds long and things like that. So, that's a fun fact. So I thought my body decided to throw a burp into the middle of that one. But if you like Andre the Giant, maybe check that one out. It's like I said, it's not like Oscar worthy, nothing like that. But if you like Andre the Giant, you probably want to check it out. With that said, we got any questions, comments, super chats? I know we have 2 super chats, but
I only saw one so far. YouTuber, have you seen To All the Boys I've Loved Before?
No, I have not. I have not checked that. You've watched it?
I watched it.
Oh, what did you think about it?
I enjoyed it. It was really well made. It's really, really sweet. Cute little film.
Okay. Should I check it out? Am I going to watch it and think it's a cute little film, or am I going to watch it and be like, oh my goodness, these are the worst?
I don't think you'll think it's the worst. It's not a movie that you would normally seek out by yourself, but it's enjoyable. It's well done.
Is it the one I walked in on while you were watching it, like halfway through it or something like that?
Probably.
Okay, so I've seen like 10 minutes in the middle of it and I made fun of it.
Oh, actually, yeah, you did. You walked in right at the end. Yeah.
Oh, so I already know the end of it, so I don't need to watch it.
Oh, whatever.
So I have not. My wife has. Perhaps I'll check it. This is the one that's getting a sequel, right?
I don't know.
I don't know why I asked you that, as if I don't know the answer. I'm asking the question.
It is getting a sequel?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it's getting a sequel.
Oh, I hadn't heard that yet.
There was also another one from Josh. He said, "Did you ever watch Thin Red Line?" No, I have not watched the Thin Red Line. And then Rich Reviews said, "Thoughts on the theory that Kevin from Home Alone is Jigsaw all grown up?" Whoa, that escalated real fast. It doesn't add up because Macaulay Culkin from the year 1990 does not equal John Kramer in 2003 or whatever. I mean, he did, in 13 years, I've seen what he looked like, and he did not look like a man in his 60s. So the theory doesn't add up. I don't know where this theory came from, but the math on it does not add up. Did anyone throw in their picks for most mediocre movie of the year?
Meg was meh.
Yes.
I thought that was
there's probably a lot of people who went meh for the Meg. That makes sense.
Sorry. I'm not in that section of the chats right now, so I can't give a. Most people are just agreeing or disagreeing with you, as opposed to listing new ones.
Yeah. Okay. And so it's these types of movies. It's this middle section where it gets a little, even in this live stream, probably slows down a little bit because it's like a bunch of movies like and it's about to start heating up as we start getting into the section where I'm going to talk about some movies that for me were they were good mixed and that you love them. This, like, I'm looking at my next section. It's about to start getting juicy. These are movies I know a bunch of you have in your top 10. If Cody Leach, you're still watching, one that's in your top 10 is about to come up in my 30s. So any other comments, questions you picked up real quick before I play my next little video?
No, he hasn't talked about Aquaman yet. Mowgli has come up a few times.
We haven't seen Mowgli.
Oh.
Anything else?
No.
All right, I'm going to play an ad. I think I've already played this one. I'm going to start repeating some of my ads for my little breaks. But I'll be back shortly, and we can talk about more movies. Hey, everybody. Sean Chandler here from a few hours ago. Right now, me in the present is getting a drink, maybe swapping out shirts, maybe running to the bathroom. I don't know what I'm doing. But as as for right now, I wanted to give myself an opportunity to do all those things, so I was going to stop and ask these fine humans their favorite movies of the year. Liam, what was your favorite movie of the year?
Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse?
And Bumblebee.
Bumblebee. So this is the last two you saw. What about, like, Incredibles 2?
Yeah.
Wreck-It Ralph?
Yeah.
You're just going to say yeah to whatever I say, right? Chloe, what about you? What did you like?
I like Wreck-It Ralph Breaks the Internet. And
What's the one you saw a couple days ago with the cousins? With the dancing and singing?
Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins, was that good?
I like Mary Poppins and Wreck-It Ralph.
What
Breaks
did
the
you
Internet.
What did you think about Smallfoot?
Good.
It was good too. Any other ones we forgot to mention that you guys liked? Teen Titans Go to the Movies?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys got pumped about that one, yeah. Is that one funny?
Yeah.
What's the funniest part?
I think it was funny when Robin took off his shirt.
Oh, when Robin took off his shirt? Well, that took a weird direction.
My favorite part was when at the end, when he said,
What did he say at the end?
ask our parents where your babies come from.
Uh-oh. I don't like where that's going. All right, I'm going to send this one back to me in the present, but I'll be back to talk to you more in the future.
All right, I am back. Thank you once again, children and me from the past. We are now going to move into the section that is the 30s, and this is where we're going to start disagreeing. And the reason for this is that I probably saw 3, 4, 5 times as many movies as you did. Most of you. Some of you kept up with these, but most people don't see 90 movies in a year. Most people see 10, 20 movies in a year. And so movies that are in my top 40, if you only saw 10 movies or 20 movies, percentage-wise, that's the same percentage of your top 10 as it is my top 40 or so. Like, that's where you start having some really big gaps. And so as I go into this, let's start having some juicy discussion. Leave your comments. Jennifer, if you can try and track some of these movies where we start having the big disagreements, and they're about to start coming. With that said, at number 40 is... Oh, actually, real quick, I got my little bumper for this section. I made these cute little graphics, and I want to make sure that I use them. At number 40 is Mandy. Now, Mandy's one of these movies that it seems like it's a love or hate one. And I knew my wife wouldn't want to watch this one with me, so I watched it on my own, and it's the most drugged out, LSD-induced movie I've seen this year. At the basic premise of it, it's like evil death cult type movie, kidnapping, revenge story. Which in and of itself sounds pretty weird and crazy, and like weird demons while not really being a demon movie. And everyone's on drugs in the movie. Weird, crazy color scheme, very artistic. And so, much like as I talked about with Venom, but in a totally different way, it's a movie that's spicy. It's a movie that has a very distinct flavor to it that some people will be like, I love how spicy this is. And other people will be like, I do not like how spicy this is. And in this case, spicy can be replaced with drug-induced. I do not like watching movies that are this bonkers. And so, like, it's a real slow burn. It takes like 40 minutes for things to really kick in. And lots of scenes of people in these very elaborate color schemes just sitting there talking about their dreams and stuff. And talking about what drugs they're doing. And then once it gets started, and once things get going, I mean, Nick Cage he forges his own axe and then kills people with his axe. He has a chainsaw fight with a guy. I mean, bonkers type stuff, but very slow paced. Too slow paced for me, too weird for me, but there's stuff in there that makes it very interesting at the same time. So while I didn't love it, it was an interesting movie. At number 39, sorry, Cody Leach, Summer of 84. And it's still good. I know some people, it's a divisive one, but it's not a movie that I think I understand why it's divisive. For me, this movie felt like, yeah, that was a cool, good movie. And if you don't know what it is, it's kind of in the vein of It and Stranger Things in that it's this throwback little kids involved in a horror movie set in the 80s. So it has the nostalgia factor to it. It's that type of movie. Lower budget. It doesn't have all the shenanigans of these higher budget ones, but it's a whodunit of kids trying to figure out who the killer is, and you're hanging out with a bunch of 13-year-olds that talk like actual 13-year-olds.
And I saw like on Collider.com, they gave this movie an F. They gave it an F, like, this is the worst, like, blah, 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 blah. I was like, wow, that is so, I can't believe that. And then my good friend Cody Leach said, it's like, I think at one point in time he said it was his favorite movie there. Like, he has it way up here. Now, I believe also Cody Leach would say, like, Stand By Me is one of his favorite movies, I believe is what he said before. And so these type of coming of age, little kids talking like kids type movies, that's his type of thing. So understand that. For me, I was like, that's just a solid, interesting little movie about teenagers just trying to figure out a murder mystery type thing. Goes on a little bit too long. The last like 15 minutes, it felt like it ended like 5 times, and then it was like, but then this happened, and then this kept happening. So it had a few too many of those for me. But overall, just a nice little cool movie about kids hanging out with each other in that type of thing. So I wanted to love it even more because Cody Leach is such a good friend of mine, but didn't quite get there for me. Coming at number 38, one we watched just a couple weeks back, A Simple Favor. And just a dark comedy thriller about like whodunit, missing person, were they murdered, what happened, type thing, with the kind of a dark bite to it in the way that Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick are talking. And just a very an odd tone to it that's very intentional. It's not like a bad tone. It's not like tonally inconsistent. Just a very distinct flavor, to use one of the words I've been using, for A Simple Favor. Flavor. I don't remember what words I'm saying here, so I don't say it wrong. A Simple Flavor as the movie. But so, as it goes along, it was always kept my attention. It was always interesting. I just don't know if the big twists and reveals made a lot of sense. Like, at the central premise of how certain things play out going into the second half of the movie, I don't know that we're given a good enough reason as to why characters did certain things. And so that's where I really didn't buy aspects of it. But it always kept me entertained and interested. And so it's a solid thriller. It's not a great thriller. And it's interesting. You just watched it. You were interested in this one. What was your take on it?
It's got Anna Kendrick in it, so that's...
It does have Anna Kendrick in it.
one of the main reasons I wanted to watch it, because it wasn't pitch perfect.
But so it's a turn for her, of sorts.
Yeah.
She's not terribly different. It's like she's an older version of who she normally plays because she's a mom. But then they throw in these weird other reveals about her that's like when they first did the reveal about some of her backstory, you're like, whoa, where's this going? And somehow it kind of works because it fits in with the weird tone and the humor of it. But at the same time, you're like, whoa, what did they just do to Anna Kendrick?
Yeah, it was interesting. I don't know. I thought it was better than I expected.
It was better than you expected?
I mean, I had really low expectations. It looked like one of those movies that they put the right people in it, and you wanted to like it, and so then inevitably you're going to hate it. That's kind of what my expectation was. I wanted to go in liking it, so I expected to hate it. So then it was better than I expected.
And so here's the interesting thing on this one, is it's from Paul Feig, which he is, in the scheme of the last 10 years, this is a guy that he became famous in the last 10 years. He's been around for a long time. But very prominent director for The Office, which The Office is like, that's the show of our marriage. That's what we've been watching literally the last 10 years on repeat. We were watching it last night, The Office. Last night we were watching it with our kids really for the first time ever last night. So that was a bad idea, but / a great idea.
The part was good.
So he famed very prominent on The Office. Then he does Bridesmaids, and people, I mean, you're not crazy about it, but most people, big fan of Bridesmaids. And that's where Melissa McCarthy exploded into the mainstream. We knew about her from Gilmore Girls, but Bridesmaids just launched her into a movie star. And then he does Ghostbusters. And people hate him now. And so this very weird, the way that, and he said some things in regards to Ghostbusters where he attacked the fan base, and he made mistakes that made people hate him. But people hate him. And so then he does A Simple Favor, and it was pretty low-key in the release of it. It came out right when the baby came out. That's why we didn't, well, that was a little bit too literal of a way to phrase that. Right around when the baby was born, when the stork brought the child. That's why we didn't see it in the theater. Otherwise, it would have been a great date night for us. So we only barely were able to check this one out in the last couple of weeks when it came out on video. It was like, oh, great. I was wanting to see this one, and finally we got to see it. Anyway, we're probably talking about this one too. 37, we're about to get controversial. Number 37 on my list, one of my biggest disappointments of the year, Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Lots of people agree with you.
It's one of these ones that the way some people feel about Incredibles 2, that's the way that I feel about and I knew it. While I've been doing this video, I realized there's a movie on this list that it's not on here. So I'm going to have to add it in here. It's maybe rank higher than it would have otherwise. But actually, I've seen 88 movies. The title on this video is wrong. Anyway, what movie are we talking about? Ralph Breaks the Internet. Sorry, that's the reality of doing a live stream and you realize, wow, I actually saw 88 movies this year. But so, Ralph Breaks the Internet is a movie that I thought the setup was pretty good. I was a little nervous moving away from the retro video game setting off to the internet in general, but it's not a terrible idea. And the idea of trying to fix their video game, all that worked. And then they go into the internet world, and it just felt to me like all the low-hanging fruit of internet jokes you can do. Like, what if Ralph did a bunch of memes? Well, that's not really clever. It's just, it's as non-witty as like what they're doing as gags in the movie are literally just cheap meme gags. In which case, it's like it's doing the thing that it's criticizing, which struck me as odd. Some people loved it because they're like, oh, that's what the internet is like. Like, okay, but now you're making your movie into that. And it resolves the main plot line about 60% of the way through the film, and then it just like goes off in this, like, it makes Ralph really unlikable. And the plot shifts to the character arc becomes the main storyline. He's projected into they make a very literal version of the subplot becomes the main plot line of it and the main conflict of it. And I really didn't like the way that looked. I hated that. I did not like the design of the way it looked. Did not like the way it played out. And so I was not at all a fan of the end of this film. And so it was a movie that, like, the first third, I was like, I might like this more than the first one. First 40%, yeah, I still think I like this more than the first one. And around halfway, I do not like the way this is playing out with memes and making money. Like, this doesn't even understand how the internet works at all. Internet money is not that easy to make at all. And so it just really disappointed me. Put your defenses in the comment section. Why did you guys love it? Actually, I haven't said this in any of my other videos. So one of the people that I used to listen to a podcast called Script Notes constantly. And it's a script, if you're wondering what I do in my videos when I say something wrong, I pause and I go, and I do that, and then I do refilm what I just failed at. You're watching live, so I'm doing the same things I normally do when recording. You just get to see it this time. So Script Notes is a podcast by two professional screenwriters, John August and Ted Cruz's roommate from college, Craig Mazin. And John August, he wrote a bunch of scripts for Tim Burton, and he did like the Charlie's Angels movies, the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, a bunch of the stuff in the zeros that Tim Burton did. So he's a very prominent screenwriter. And then you've got Craig Mazin, who's done a bunch of like lowbrow comedies. He did Hangover 2 and 3, Identity, Theft, the Melissa McCarthy. She's making a lot of appearances in the video. And so these two guys, and so that's where I learned a lot about screenwriting, storytelling, character arcs. The language that I use in my reviews came from having listened to 100 or 200 episodes of their show for like 4 years straight or something like that. Every week listening to what they put out and learning how screenwriters talk about story and character. So some of that is where I have criticized Ralph Breaks the Internet is because of watching Script Notes and being like, I don't like the way the story ends at 60% and then a new story takes over. I don't like this. John August, who I just mentioned, Tim Burton screenwriter guy, Script Notes, who taught me how to talk about movies through his podcast, he tweeted out, just saw Ralph's Break the Internet. It's great. It breaks all the rules and it does it perfectly. So the guy that taught me through his podcast how to talk about movies, the vocabulary, story structure, that the way that I think about movies, John August 100% disagrees with me on my take on this movie. Now, it's in the top 40. I gave it a positive review. I stand by that. It's a good movie. It's just a movie that I think could have been a lot better, and I do not like what they did with the story. And I think that they lost some of the charm by going away from retro gaming. put your comments down below. Hopefully we can, in short order, have some nice, lively discussion. So, Ralph Breaks the Internet is number 37. I don't have time to fully think through this, but I'm going to throw it right here anyway. Also at number 37, Hunter Killer. Hunter Killer. This is the movie I left off my list. This is the 88th movie. I realized as I was talking about an hour ago that I don't think it's on my list, and so I have to throw it in right here. I think it's a good movie. I watched it because people told before. We're at the point in time in this live stream where my mind is losing some of its edge. But so back a month back, 2 months back, I put out a little message asking you guys to tell me what movies are probably the worst of the year. So you gave me a bunch of movies. I've been trying to check them out over the last 6 weeks so I can make a good worst of the year list. My brother-in-law said, hey, want to go see Hunter Killer with me and the boys? He's got twin boys. I went, sure, let's go see it at the Dollar Theater. I went to go see it, and I was going in thinking, this thing could be bad. And it's not. I just don't know where people are coming from. If you think it's bland or boring because you don't like the genre, I understand. But as a submarine political action thriller, I don't understand the hate. I don't understand where people are coming from on this one. And I'm not saying I expected to have like 90% Rotten Tomatoes or anything like that, but it's just a solid political action thriller. If you like Jack Ryan movies, if you like the TV show 24, Hunter Killer is a good like if I watched that with my wife, she'd be totally down for it. She'd be like, oh yeah, I like this. And so it feels like people just saw the dumb title. The title's pretty dumb. And that Gerard Butler stars in it. And they went, throwaway crap. I mean, it's got some of the cliches of the genre. There's some contrivances in the story. Certainly. Yeah, you can nitpick some of this stuff. At the end of the day, though, it delivered the thrills and the action that I want from the genre. It's a submarine thriller, so you got the let's go through the cave when we gotta be quiet, and you got them the water's leaking, but there's also a plot line about mercenary guys, or not mercenaries, like Green Berets, the Navy SEALs or what, I don't remember which branch they are, on the ground and trying to break in to get a guy. It just worked for me. The Hunter Killer hatred, I totally don't get at all. If you don't like the genre, if you thought it was a little bit boring because you're not into this kind of thing, fair enough. But some of the other stuff, I just think it's Gerard Butler hate, wherever that's coming from. I don't get it. I thought it was good. So that's my second, number 37, because of the mistake I made before. Number 36 is The Frontrunner. This is just a good political movie about a real-life event from back in 1988, 87, where a guy was the front runner to be the Democratic candidate for president, and then within the span of 3 weeks, the whole thing kind of fell apart over a scandal. And it was kind of the beginning of the modern era of chasing around politicians, trying to get dirt on them, the way that we do things now. That's just kind of the way all of it works and runs. This is kind of the start of it. And it's a really interesting, very interesting story. The movie itself basically doesn't want to pick a side. And so what it does, or make too much of a statement, and so it tries to tell the story from the perspective of the main guy, his wife, his kids, his team, politicians, the other side, the news, the other newsroom. It just tells the story from 20 different perspectives. I saw this at the Austin Film Festival, and the director, Jason Reitman, was there. So this is Ivan Reitman, the director of Ghostbusters, his son. He's present in the room, and so he kind of said that. He's like, yeah, what we wanted to do was not give you the right answers. We wanted to ask the questions and give the perspective of all these different 20 people. And it's really pretty cool little experience to see it in that setting. And even one moment in time in it, at one point in time, someone asked, because there was a Q&A afterwards, what happened to this person in real life? And he goes to answer it. The director goes to answer the question, and someone in the back of the room goes, and you can't hear what they're saying, but here's saying stuff. And so they walk up to that person with a mic, and it turns out it's the daughter of the person in the movie, not the actor. The actual real life person, their daughter's in the back of the room, and she's like, oh yeah, he retired from politics and went on with so really cool environment, little experience. The movie itself, it's not great. But it's a good movie, a little bit on the forgettable side. All right, our next almost 6 on this list are they're all controversial. It's about to get juicy. At number 35 is a movie that I put on my most disappointing list. I'd still give it a positive review. I own it. It's right over here. I stand by my positive review. I'm excited to show it to my kids someday. Number 35, Ready Player One. This one was a pretty big disappointment for me. It's one of my most anticipated movies of the year. And then I watched it, and it let me down. So I read the book a couple times. I read it a couple years back, and then I read it in leading up to the film coming out right that week beforehand. And so watching it, it just felt like a dumb Cliff Notes version of the book. And a lot of the things in the book don't translate well to the film because it's like people playing video games and acting out movies. You can't take that and be like, all right, now we're watching a guy play an 80s arcade game for 20 minutes. You can't do that. So you replace that with a race. Fair enough. But the part that bothered me, that made me go, ugh, why are you doing this, is that they took the riddles and the mystery that was all intertwined with this backstory about the education system and the worldview of the Holiday character that's kind of the main mastermind behind creating the mystery that is the Oasis, the plot of the movie. It dumbed it all down to drive backwards. Like the movie starts off with this big mystery riddle and like it does all this amazing world building, and then you get into the movie and it makes it so simplified, and it for that reason it seriously disappointed me on a level that was very disappointing for me. This is a good movie. It's still a good movie. I understand why people love it. There's tons of nostalgia. A ton of you guys have told me it's your top 10. You loved it. It was the most fun you had at the movies. I totally get it. But for me, I couldn't detach myself from my expectations. And the experience I had with the book, the movie didn't live up to that experience. So I'm almost never the guy that's like, oh, the book was better than the movie. I'm almost never that guy because I haven't normally read the book. This time, however, the book is better than the movie. Next up on here is another really controversial one. One of the more interesting movies to come out this year, not because the movie itself is all that interesting, but because of everything surrounding the movie is interesting. At number 34, Solo, a Star Wars story. So, once again, much like Venom, this is one of those movies that when I put out my best, worst, surprises, disappointments of the year, all four of those videos, I had people saying, where's Solo? All four of them. People wanted it to be the best. People wanted it to be the worst. People wanted it to be the biggest disappointment. People wanted it to be the biggest surprise. All four of them. And for me, I was like, it's none of those things. It's just a movie I had fun with. I went into it thinking this movie could be really bad because I didn't think it was a good idea to make a Han Solo movie. I don't want more Star Wars prequels like this. I went into it skeptical because all the director stuff where they went from Lord and Miller, who are like these really spicy, interesting, modern directors with this distinct sense of humor, to Ron Howard, the safest pick for a Star Wars movie you could come up with. He's like the most generic, he's a great director, but as for stylistically, very obvious, safe choice to direct a Star Wars movie. And then with Lord and Miller, it just seemed like, what is going on here? I don't understand what they're doing. So I went in expecting this movie could be bad. And I liked it. It's a fun movie. It's not a great movie. It's not as good as a Star Wars movie should be. It's the least ambitious of the Star Wars movies. It's the least, it's the most forgettable of the Star Wars movies because even the bad Star Wars movies have memorability in their badness. So this one just kind of exists out there. But people have said it was their favorite. People said it was their least favorite. People said they were disappointed. Everything else for me, it was like, yeah, it's just kind of there in the middle. So that one for me was kind of interesting the way that played out. That it was like, it just kind of happened. What about you? You walked out on Ready Player One. What's your take on Ready Player One?
I didn't walk out of the movie.
No, you walked out of the room right now. I was gonna, I was gonna ask her. That's why I'm looping back to it. But she walked out of the room because the baby being a distraction.
I liked it. Okay, I liked. I'm probably the opposite of you.
You're the opposite of me?
Like
That's true. I'm a boy and you're a girl.
I'm probably like more I liked the edits to make it more mainstream because I'm not as familiar with I appreciated it in the book and understood where they were going, but I also appreciated actually getting the references, the cultural references that they put in the movie as opposed to the really obscure things that they put in the book.
The book was too deep of cuts and the movie was like, it's a flying DeLorean.
Yeah, just like that.
She gave me a look when I said that. Solo, a Star Wars story. What was your take on that one?
Same with Peter Rabbit. It's not really a good one to ask me. The kids were really distracted. If I'd seen it without the kids, I think I would have had a totally different interpretation of the film had we not had the kids.
Recurring theme in this section. Kids are annoying and a distraction. That's what I'm taking away from what you're saying, right?
No.
Okay, next up on the list, At number 33, another very divisive film, Annihilation. This is one that a lot of people have it, and like this is a top 10. But I walked out of Annihilation with my friend Vincent, and he said this is probably my favorite film of the year, and I'm having a hard time imagining a movie topping it. So that was his takeaway, and I walked out of the movie like, what did I just watch? So it's not it's kind of an ambiguous film. It has a lot of art to it. The meanings aren't entirely clear, and so you think about. It's not really like 2001, but it's like 2001 in that it has a narrative that's very grounded and set up that you go, oh, I can follow this. And then as it goes along, it gets much more exploring into ideas, and it's very unclear exactly what's happening, and it gets much more artsy. I'm not a very artsy person when it comes to movies. I like typical story structures or being creative with typical story structures, normal character arcs. I like blockbusters entertainment, movies that say things about characters and humanity, but the artistic side, when it's like unclear exactly what's being said and ambiguous, I'm not the person that naturally gravitates toward that. So I watch a movie like this and I respect it more than I love it. It's not a movie that it's not naturally a movie that I think that's my type of movie right there. I watch it and I think that was really cool. That's a neat experience. I don't know if I'll ever watch that again, but that was a pretty cool movie. I'm glad that exists. And I'm glad someone else can love that. But for me, I'm not quite sure what I feel about it. And here we are 10 months later. Still not quite sure what I feel about Annihilation. And number 2 is Sicario 2, Day of Soldado. This is one of those movies that I watched and it adequately delivered the experience that I wanted, of the tension, of telling the story now from the perspective of our Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro characters as opposed to Emily Blunt. And so then it loses some of the edge because of that, because you can't have them be quite as shooting kids in the face as they were in the previous movie if they're the protagonist. And so again, it takes a little bit of the edge off, but it still delivered what I wanted. It's not the original is one of those movies that people absolutely love because of the director, because it really goes for it, because it has a lot of edge to it. And so some people were really disappointed by this one. I went in not expecting it to be what the first one was. And so with my expectations in check, it's a good movie. It's a pretty solid film that I wasn't really disappointed by. It delivered what I thought it was going to deliver, and what I enjoy from this particular genre. Coming in at number 31 is a movie I saw just a little bit ago that my daughter listed as her favorite of the year, Mary Poppins Returns. So what I said about this movie is that it's a pretty good movie. It has all the fun, the charm, the dancing that you want out of a Mary Poppins movie. Emily Blunt is great in the lead role. Lin-Manuel is great in that Dick Van Dyke type role in this film. But the whole thing to me felt like a solid cover of your favorite song, or a solid cover of a song, which is to say it delivers all the melody and the elements that you like about the original, more of what you like about it, a little bit of a different twist, a little bit of a different spin to it, but it's basically what you got before, just without it being so fresh and original as an original song. That's what it feels like to me. And that's to say it's very good, it's well made. If you like Mary Poppins, I would think that you would like Mary Poppins Returns. It delivers more of it. It's just, I don't think it can have that magic of the original while seemingly just trying to do a new version of everything from the first one. Because you got a replacement for Dick Van Dyke. You've got a replacement for the bank plotline, which is a bank plotline. And you just take the things like, what's a new one of everything that we can put in this one? That's one this kind of felt like to me. And since I'm not by default a Mary Poppins aficionado, I'm not like, that's not my go-to thing. By the nature of that, I wasn't just in love with this movie. Still very good. Not saying it's bad. It's like a cover, though. That's, I think, the best way I can describe it is that it's like a cover of a song. And with that said, we are now finished with this section. It looks like we got at least one super chat. And if you guys want to throw in your take on, Ready Player One, Solo, a Star Wars movie, Annihilation, Mary Poppins Returns, everything I said in there, people have big, strong opinions on those movies. So if we can throw some of those thoughts in there.
There's been a lot of discussion about Infinity War, Black Panther, and Aquaman, and where those three rank compared with one another. That's getting really heated, and has been most of this thing. Let's see. Ready Player One, lots of people agree. I'm looking for the super chat. Do you have it?
Hans Studman said, I agree with your son. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was amazing, funny, a lot of heart, one of the best movies of the year. As you will see as we get higher up on this list, I also agree with my son. Thank you so much for the super chat. I saw someone in the chat board as I clicked over to look at it, someone saying, why wasn't Holmes and Watson mentioned? First off, we have mentioned Holmes and Watson. Second off, I haven't seen it, so I can't actually review it for that reason. As it turns out, I was making videos last week, not rushing out to watch really crappy movies, so I didn't see it. And there's lots of movies that won't be mentioned. The reason they're not mentioned is I did not see them. It's as simple as that. I saw 88 movies this year, not 87, that was a lie. 88 movies this year, and like 700 movies came out this year. I can't watch 10 new movies every single day, so that's the reason some of that happens. Other thoughts? People talking about Ready Player One, Solo, Mary Poppins.
Solo is exactly what you said, just all across the board. They either love it and are defending it and outraged that it's not higher in your list, and then there's people that are like, I can't believe it beat out, and then list any of the previous movies that you've put on there. So.
Yep, and that's where it's tricky with some of these divisive ones. It's one of those movies I don't understand people that hate it. Like Jeremy Johns, over 100 million subscriber movie critic guy, he has it on his 10 worst of the year. And he said both as a heist movie, as both just a sci-fi movie, as a Star Wars movie, on every level, top 10 worst for him. I don't get that. Like, I don't know what he's watching to put it that low. Maybe disappointing, or if his argument it's a disgrace to Star Wars. Okay, fair enough. But just to say it's one of the 10 worst of the year, I could just look at his channel and see what other movies he saw this year. He saw some crap that are not 10 words. So I just don't get it. There's enough entertainment in there and fun that I don't see that low. But yeah, that's just my take on it. All right, I'm not even going to put an ad. We're just go straight into our 20s on this one. Did you have something to say real quick? No. We're just going to go for it because we're at 30 minutes left. And we got 30 minutes at 30 movies, 30 minutes. And so we're actually going to go over 3 hours. Wrong video. Sorry about that. Here we go. Moving into the 20s at number 30, which is not in the 20s. The numbering had to be funky because of the top 10, the way this all worked out. But at number 30, another one you guys are going to get mad at me for, Bohemian Rhapsody. Bohemian Rhapsody. I know it got nominated by the Golden Globes for one of the Best Picture. Some of you absolutely love it, and I get why. It is a crowd pleaser of a movie. It is just to see the story of it, watching the rise of fame. There's a bunch of big, strong emotions involving the lead story about Freddie Mercury in here, about him trying to understand himself and accept himself, relate to people properly, the tragedy in the later years of his life. I get so much of it. And then it building towards the Live Aid event. I totally get why people absolutely love this movie as a crowd pleaser. But if you watch it as just like cinema, I don't feel like they found an inspired way to tell his story. It's a very straightforward, these things happen in this order, except the problem is that it's not really what happened. Especially as you move into the latter half of the movie, as they tried to, you make a movie and you have to have conflict, and when you have a behind the scene or behind the music type storyline, when you do a biopic, there's certain plot beats that are supposed to happen. When the breakup happens and this guy goes off to do his solo career, and they infuse all of this stuff into the movie, that's not really what happened in real life. And especially building up to the nature of the Live Aid event, they just fabricated things that it's not I totally get it's not a documentary, and I'm not expecting it to be a documentary. That's what documentaries are for, and that's what biographies are for. But The way that they translated the Queen story, which itself is very interesting, has some big emotions and touches on some scary, interesting stuff with AIDS and all kinds of things. The way that they did it is they took the cliche behind the music playbook and they infused it on top of the Queen story. They made the Queen story more generic. They took there's one of the greatest bands of all time, rock bands of all time, their story, and made it less interesting by trying to fit it into a template and a formula. So I like the movie. It's still enjoyable. Whenever it's on video, I'm sure I'll watch it with my wife. It's a good time. It's a good crowd pleaser. It's a very watchable movie. But on a story level, it really frustrated me that they dumbed down the story. I mean, you're talking about a guy, like a real guy that went through some crazy stuff and got AIDS and died. And was dealing with his sexuality at a time when culture was in a very different place in regards to those things. And they changed some of that stuff. And some of that's kind of distasteful to me at a certain point in time in the way they handle it. I like to put the cliches in there. That's a weird thing to do. So anyway, maybe I'm more annoyed by it than I want to let on. At number 29, and this is a movie that was a real big surprise for me. Direct-to-video movie. Wasn't released in theaters. The Final Score. And it's a movie starring Drax the Destroyer, a James Bond, and a Punisher. Because you got Dave Bautista, you got Pierce Brosnan, and you've got, blanking on it, Punisher Warzone one. Blanking on, I've been talking too long. I know his name in other contexts. But so, all three of them are in the movie, and this is the movie that I wanted Skyscraper to be. It's, Skyscraper is very much Die Hard with The Rock, with Towering Inferno thrown into the mix. And there's a movie that came out in the mid-90s called Sudden Death that's a Die Hard knockoff with Jean-Claude Van Damme at a hockey game, and it's a hockey arena, terrorists take over, and they're going to blow it up. So the final score is basically Sudden Death, a modern version of it. There's a bunch of different changes to the plotline, a bunch of different things about it that are changed about it, but it's much more aligned with Sudden Death than directly with Die Hard. And we just had a lot of fun with it. First off, when we went to go watch it, I tweeted out, "Hey, I'm about to watch a movie with Drax the Destroyer, the Punisher, and James Bond," and I tagged Dave Bautista in it, and he retweeted it, which... that was cool. Dave Bautista retweeted me and responded to me. That was a fun moment. So that was a nice setup to go in to watch the movie. But then just as a throwback action movie, this is the one that like really worked for me. It loses it a little bit towards the end where they tried to do some things that were beyond their budget. But beyond that, it works as this genre of movie. If you watch the trailer and you go, I don't want to watch another one of these movies, it's not a movie for you. But if you watch the trailer and you go, oh, I like this type of movie, you'll probably like the movie. It delivers on it. Where Skyscraper just felt so mediocre and bland and flavorless, this one works on a lot of levels. That one did not. So, like I said, that's one of my... I thought about putting out this one on my biggest surprises list. This was a runner-up to be on that list, and maybe I should have even mentioned it. But it's a movie I'd like to tell more people about. And number 28 is Tag. It's just a solid, good comedy for adults. Rated R comedy. It was good. And it made me laugh. Had some nice heart and emotion to it. But it was never quite as funny as I wanted it to be. And the heartfelt stuff in the end of the film felt pretty sudden. And right before they got to the real heartfelt stuff, it got a little bit kind of nasty a little bit. And the plot twist that kind of pulled some of the people apart. It got a little bit too nasty for how heartfelt and real they went 10 minutes later in the movie. But beyond that, just a fun movie. And actually surprisingly well choreographed action and chases inside of it, which you normally don't say about a comedy, but that'll be actually a recurring theme in the next little bit of it, as there's some other comedies that fit that category as well. So, so just a solid movie, not a fantastic movie, but a good entry. Number 27, this one's going to get controversial because this is another one that people told me this should be in my top 10. Like, where's this movie? Where's this movie? Number 27, Hereditary. I watched this one a couple months back, 6 weeks back with my buddy Andy, which in and of itself, if we were just ranking experiences watching movies this year, this movie might be top 10 because I'm not really scared by movies. Like at all. Like I watched Hereditary and then went, all right, I'm going to bed, just laid down. And I mean, just emotionally totally unaffected by the scares or anything like that. I didn't watch anything and just fall asleep right afterwards. I just don't get scared by movies. And I'm also not the most like, whoa, like I don't react to things with big emotions. Andy freaks out during horror movies. And so he's watching it like literally like trying to pull things in front of his eyes and doing all this fun stuff while we're watching it. My wife doesn't watch horror movies at all. At all. Like that, she doesn't do anything. She didn't do Gremlins. So she doesn't do anything. But she was in the room, headphones in, kind of working on her computer, not paying attention. And if you've seen the movie, I'm not going to spoil this if you don't to say details. We're watching the movie. She just happens to look up during the car ride home sequence where the girl is sick and rolls down the window. This is when she decides to look up, which once again makes for an amazing experience watching the movie. If that's the one point in time she looks up in the movie. So Andy's freaking out over here. She's freaking out over there. And I'm like, this is amazing. The movie itself, great atmosphere. Just great tension building, like unsettling what's going on throughout the whole thing. Some really good character moments with the family and dealing with regret and loss and everything happening. All that stuff is great. For me, it was probably 15, 20 minutes too long, though. It spends so much time in these building tension and sitting on sequences that it just was too much of that for me. A little bit too long. And then likewise on the final answers they gave. When they started to give them, and there's a sequence, I don't know, 30 minutes from the end of it, and they mentioned something with the grandma, and you learn some information, and I went, that's where we're going? That's kind of it? And then it starts to play out going into the last 10, 15 minutes, and once again, I was like, this isn't a satisfying enough answer. Like, the tension or the craft of building the unsettling nature is all there. The actual answers, I don't feel were nearly as well handled in that regard, unfortunately. So there's a bunch of things I loved about it, things I really liked. The best thing, though, about watching this one is we were watching it at our house, and we recently got a new Apple TV. And our settings on everything aren't hooked up right. But the remote was out wherever on the couch we're at. And we get to the end of the movie, and some people, at the end of the movie, people go up into a treehouse. And so, and that's not saying that's not really a spoiler, but so that happens in the movie, and you're basically waiting for some what's going to happen, and we're like sitting there like, what is it? Andy's like freaking out, and then someone puts their leg down right on the remote for the Apple TV, and so it clicks a button, the Apple TV turns on, and the TV switches away to the Apple TV and cuts away from the movie we're watching. I'm like, what? We got to stop. What are you doing? Get back to it. We got to get back to the movie. Pause it. And start freaking out. Everything right there. Watching it already. So watching it was a great, really fun experience. If I was just sitting there watching it by myself, it'd be what I just said before. Of like really great atmosphere, tension building. The craft of all that's great. A little bit too long for my taste, and I didn't like the answers given. But some of you guys loved them. Top 10. Number 26, another one that a bunch of you guys were like, why isn't this in your top 10? Why isn't this in your top 10? Halloween. I really liked this movie. I thought it was really good. The basic setup of it, of ignoring a bunch of the sequels, that's probably a good idea, because the sequels kind of went off on some crazy directions with it, that if you're really into the Halloween movies, then you really buy into the Thorn trilogy and curses and things like that. But most people aren't as familiar with that stuff, and it's not, some of it's not as good. And then Halloween Resurrection, once again, not such a great movie for most people. So I thought the idea of coming back to Laurie Strode and old Jamie Lee Curtis just brings a gravitas to a slasher film you don't normally get. And especially now, like 40 years later, she's like Hollywood royalty and this well-seasoned veteran actress. So they craft a story about her as this kind of very broken person that has raised a family but is still dealing with the consequences of this film, or of the first film. All really cool stuff. And I enjoyed all those aspects and the family dynamics and her history and her daughter. I even liked the third act of the movie where some people was like, oh, it gets too Home Alone, or it gets too... I dug it. I totally dug what they were doing at the end there. I didn't feel like the very end was a cop-out or anything. All of it felt fine to me, or good to me. I really enjoyed it. The things that knocked it back for me from being just like a great film, and it's stupid mistakes, I felt. The New Loomis, where they went with that, or in general, I never thought that New Loomis was all that good. And then the twist and with it, where it kind of ends up going, I almost like, it didn't get as bad as I thought it was going to. But I was like, oh my goodness, this movie just killed itself. It just, in the span of 10 seconds, this movie just killed itself. And it recovered. It didn't kill itself. But I couldn't believe there's like a minute there where I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing to your movie? I just didn't think the New Loomis stuff worked at all. And the second one is that the movie uses humor poorly. I didn't mind that there was humor. It's not a bad thing to have humor in a horror movie. And some of my favorite horror movies are the Scream movies, and those absolutely have humor. This movie, however, misuses humor in that it puts the... Andy King just commented. It puts the humor in the middle of tense sequences. And what humor does in a movie is that it breaks tension. In the middle of a tension sequence in a horror movie where you're supposed to be like building the tension, are they going to die? Are they going to die? Are they going to die? And then you throw a joke in the middle of it to cut the tension. You killed the most important emotion in the sequence. And in particular, the one, I think it's with the babysitter, some of it's in the trailer. That sequence, they throw a couple of like real funny zingers into the middle of this sequence that should be terrifying. And it just ruins it in a way that it shouldn't. The movie is still really good. I really enjoy it. I'm going to buy it when it comes out on Blu-ray. It's one of my favorite Halloween movies, but it just made some really big missteps at really stupid points in time that just killed it. Just knocked it back. Like immediately, I just had to knock it back certain letter grade points because you can't make those types of mistakes. And so, unfortunately, it couldn't be a top 10 movie for me for those reasons. What's Andy's comment?
I don't know. In theory, you have 10 minutes.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Where would you rank Scanners on your list?
Andy, thought he's chiming in on. Thought he's gonna chime in on.
He did.
Hereditary. Oh, he did. What did he say about Hereditary?
I'm gonna find it. He basically said that you were about to cry, or he was about to cry, and you were laughing.
Yeah, that's true. So Andy, my buddy Andy, that I was watching Hereditary with, he's almost crying because he's so scared by this movie, and I'm laughing. It's like the greatest comedy of the year because I'm a terrible person and a terrible friend, and I'm laughing at him. Not a nice person. I had a guy comment yesterday, like, you're like the nicest YouTuber. No, I'm not. I'm very mischievous if you get to know me. But I try to be nice on YouTube at least. But Andy says, where would I rank Scanners? I haven't watched Scanners in a long time, so I don't know. But it didn't come out this year. All right, next up on our list, at number 25, another one, and a bunch of people have in their top 10. Jeremy Johns had this one in his top 10. Won't You Be My Neighbor? The Mr. Rogers documentary. We watched it on when it came out on video, so like 3 months after everyone else, and we'd spent 3 months hearing people say, I've never cried this much during a movie. Like, it brought back so many emotions, and the tears were just flowing the whole time. So we went into it like, okay, wow, this thing's going to be amazing. And it's really good. It's a well-made documentary about Mr. Rogers, but I wasn't crying. Were you crying?
I was not. Wasn't I pregnant at the time?
No, you were just post-baby, so you're still, still
so
pretty
unstable hormones.
Yeah, and you're always a pretty unstable person that just breaks into tears all the time, and so coming right after a baby, you were crying about everything except this documentary. Is that was that a bad thing to say? Am I in trouble? I'm getting a look. But so, we watched it, and it's good. I get why people say it's good. I get why it says 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know who wouldn't like it. But the idea of like best of the year, it was crying. I don't get that. I don't get that side to it. And I think some of it's because Mr. Rogers didn't have he was just always a good guy. So at the inherent nature of it with storytelling, people have transformation and they face conflict. And, the conflict that Mr. Rogers faced is that he didn't like video games, and so it's like talking about video games and superheroes and stuff. Like there wasn't like the big thing they had to overcome, and so then they did that through the social issues that he tackled. But it wasn't in a way that necessarily had like this big arc throughout it. So if you had, I think it hit people on the nostalgia level. So if you're like super Mr. Rogers nostalgic for the good times before the modern era of whatever cynicism that is today, then it can hit you really hard. But for us, it was like, yeah, this is really good, but I don't quite get as much all the love that everyone else is giving it. Number 24, actually real quick. Number 24, Instant Family. This is one I thought was going to be really bad, actually, because it's from the director of Daddy's Home 2, which are movies I enjoy. They're not like great cinema. Most people really don't like them. And so we went into it, I went into it to like, okay, about adoption, what are we about to get? And it actually has a lot of heart to it. It's a movie that tackles it like it's a real deal, because the director, his family adopted 3 kids all at once. And that's what the movie's about. Basically, he went, let's make a movie about this experience that I went through of adopting 3 kids at once. And let's make it real. Let's have like the real stuff that you deal with, the actual groups that you go to for counseling and the things people say in there. Let's do all of that as a movie. And so while it has some of the, tropes of the genre, it has a lot of heart to it too. This was an interesting little experience too. I went with my mother-in-law, which we've never gone to the movies before, but I know she likes Marky Mark, so we went to go see it together. So it was a neat little experience seeing that one. She'd never been to like a press screening or anything, so fun little time. Number 23. This is a fun one to talk about. When We First Met. This was a Netflix movie starring Adam Devine and Alexandra Daddario, and it's like a time travel rom-com. And just like a cute little story, just nice and fun, non-pretentious, non-presumptive, just a simple rom-com. And it felt like this is what Netflix, I like it when they do this. Take some of these genres that aren't as common on the big screen anymore, rom-coms, high-concept action movies, star vehicles, and they do those ones. And I think they can do that well. And this was one of those ones that I just kind of like, hey, look, Jennifer, look, a time travel rom-com. Let's watch it. And we just had a real fun time with it. I thought about putting this one on my top 10 biggest surprises of the year list as well, because it's just kind of these movies that I hadn't seen anything about it and just went, oh, let's watch this one, and really liked it. So,
You're a Bumper fan anyway.
I mean, he's the best. Everyone loves him. He's the greatest. So, yeah, there you go. If you haven't seen it, if you like rom-coms, if you like time travel stories, if you want something a little bit funny that doesn't demand much of you, just easy to watch, fun entertainment, consider checking out When We First Met. At number 22, a movie that I have received many complaints and many compliments about the way I have spoken about this film. Many people ask me why it wasn't in my top 10. Coming in at number 22 for the year, a movie that I rewatched it a couple days ago, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Some people suggested that I should stop making ant puns when talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp. Well, a lot of people. I'm sorry, I can't do it. The thing is, this is one of those movies that, because it's an MCU film, it was one of my most anticipated movies of the whole year. Just because it's an MCU movie in and of itself. And while it might be it's certainly anticlimactic compared to Infinity War and some of the other Marvel films, I didn't get antsy during the runtime for it. What did I do wrong?
Nothing.
It's a movie that it doesn't have as much sting as some of the other movies. It's much smaller scale, and I think that's why it works. There's plenty of fun antics throughout the whole film. You're not even watching me as I'm doing my whole bit, my whole routine. I thought you watched. But it's a movie that's just fun. It's very easy to watch, very unassuming, and so it's very rewatchable. Like with Black Panther, I think it's a much better film, but there's so much weight to it that it's not one that I like to just throw on in the background. This is one I could just throw on and just have fun with it. And so it's not best of the year type material for me, but it's certainly a very enjoyable film. And a lot of people were disappointed by it, probably because it's smaller scale. But I just don't get to think it's a bad movie. It's just fun.
You found it to be very pleasant.
It was very pleasant. Did you have any ant puns you wanted to throw away?
That was the last one. No, I don't have any more.
Oh, what, you liked it, right?
Yeah.
That was a very short answer.
Well, I mean, it goes back to conversations that we've had before with Infinity War being such a huge scale movie.
Yeah.
And Ant-Man and the Wasp was very small. It felt kind of strange that that it was like a heist movie or again, a smaller scale.
A MacGuffin film.
Oh, on a smaller scale.
I think we've used that one 3 times, though.
Well, I just was laughing at myself.
That's why I keep doing them, because they're so... Some of them are obviously forced, obviously. And some of them are so hard not to say, like, small scale. Because it is. It's a smaller scale film than Infinity War and most of the other MCU films. But, yeah, it's very easy to watch. Coming in at number 21 is my wife's favorite movie of the year, Deadpool 2.
Shut your face.
Yeah, she does not like Deadpool. She does not like the rated R comedy. So, for me, this is one that people were like, why isn't this in your top 10? Why isn't it in your top 10? It's my favorite movie of the year. I enjoyed it. It's a very entertaining film. It's a movie that goes for it on entertainment with the jokes, plot lines, crazy insanity, Celine Dion song. I mean, you throw the James Bond style intro. It throws all this stuff at you. The meta stuff that you like. Resolving our issues with X-Men Origins Wolverine. Resolving our issues with Green Lantern. It has all that stuff you want. It just has too much. The movie had a 2-year turnaround from the first film, which is pretty short for a blockbuster. Especially like a surprise blockbuster they didn't know if it was going to be a hit. And the first movie had a 8-year production runtime. Like they spent 8, a very long time writing the script, rewriting it, and tweaking it, trying to get this movie made because the studio wouldn't let them make it. And then it comes out. It's a huge hit. Was that too big? Was that too much?
Excuse yourself.
I excuse this guy. But it has this big hit out of nowhere. And then 2 years later, they have to make the sequel. And then they had tension when they were working on it. So Tim Miller was out. They bring in the guy from John Wick as the replacement. That's a lot of behind-the-scenes drama. And I think it shows in the script, which is to say the spark is still there. Ryan Reynolds is still funny. The screenwriters still know how to make jokes. But part of really crafting a great movie is being able to trim it down and not throw every idea in there. This movie feels like every idea is in there. And so then you've got the tragedy of the beginning of it. You've got the catch-up at the beginning of it. You've got the X-Men plot line and being a trainee there. You've got the evil school for the gifted. You've got the prison sequence. You've got the X-Force plot line inside of it. Oh, yeah. I forgot. Wasn't Cable in this movie and time travel's in this movie? I mean, you have so many plot lines in so many different directions. The other thing to talk about, some people ask me, hey, are you going to do a new X-Men ranking now that Once Upon a Deadpool has come out? No. Once Upon a Deadpool is just Deadpool 2, edited for TV with Fred Savage thrown into the mix. Once Upon a Deadpool is not a new movie. It is Deadpool 2. So there's never a chance after I watched it, there's not a chance that I was going to re-rank the X-Men movies to do that, because it's just not a new movie at all in any sense of the imagination. It is Deadpool 2. And I wish they would have done more with Once Upon a Deadpool. I think there's a lot of room for them to do something interesting with what they were trying to do that they didn't do. Like alternate takes and things like that I wish they would have done a lot more with them. All right, we are now done with our 20s. Did we have I know we've got at least one super chat that just came in.
Yes, can you see it?
I can see. Mohan, I'm sorry if I'm going to butcher your name. Mohan Singhal, I'm very sorry. Sean, the live stream is great because I'm sitting here and practicing my guitar, learning a Weezer song. I love Weezer. That's how I learned guitar. I learned guitar playing Weezer songs. Literally, like the everything on the Blue Album and Pinkerton. That's how I learned playing guitar and how to harmonize. Like driving in my car, singing along with them is how I learned to hear melodies and counter melodies and all this stuff. So Weezer, I am tracking with you during the whole time. I love the ant puns and keep up the good work this year. Thank you so much. That's the plan. Hopefully this year is going to be even better. I really, since about July, I've been trying to up my game on the channel, and in real life, I tend to be a person with a sense of humor, cracking jokes and mischievous. And I didn't really tie that into my channel for a long time. It played in at certain amounts of time, but I didn't try to be funny in my videos. And I hit a point in time where I went, I should probably do more of that. I should have my channel match some of the humor that I have. And like in real life, people know me for telling funny stories and my speaking and preaching and stuff. I'm known as a funny guy. And I was like, I'm not doing any of that on my channel. So I should probably try and do some of that. That's what I've been trying to do since about July. And I think I'm getting a little bit better at it. And some of I got a lot of positive feedback on my end of the year videos, especially like disappointing my worst on the humor that I incorporated into there. So hopefully we'll have more of that coming this coming year as well. And I don't want to overstate this, but very hopefully in the first half of the year I'll be going full time. She grumbled when I said there's fear involved in that one. It's a scary thing to put out there, but
I am so proud of you.
She's very proud and very scared of the realities of what the pride that comes to. But hopefully that's coming. And so that would mean more videos, better videos, being able to do a lot more movie news stuff. And hopefully that'll happen before summertime so I can really, as soon as the big movie season hits, dedicate 40 plus hours more to the channel every single week. And just really take it to that next level. That's my plan for this next year. We just got another super chat, I believe.
It's not on my screen.
Oh, so what it says is, Sean, wish you a happy 2019. Thank you so much. Do we have any comments, questions about any controversial things I said? Hereditary, Halloween, Won't You Be My Neighbor, Bohemian Rhapsody?
Bohemian Rhapsody got a lot of pushback. They weren't very pleased.
Yeah,
like it more.
I know. I sorry.
Your ant puns, at least as far as the comment section is concerned, was a lot more popular than you let on.
That's where I don't always know what. It's always tricky with the comment section because there's an inherent nature to the person that people that are going to complain can sometimes be the loudest. And the people that hate ant puns are the most likely to say something. And there's probably 10 people that loved them for every one that says something that they hate them or something like that. And so it gets tricky to know where exactly people are at on some of these things. So I always try to fail forward. I'd rather try things and I'd rather try it and fail at it and learn from it or do something interesting and weird with ant puns or jokes or anything and them not land than just be bland. I'd rather have a flavor that sometimes doesn't taste good than have no flavor at all. Anything else?
I mean, they're just going over your rankings and arguing about where they should be. So nothing consistent that I can say that this is a hive.
All right, so we're about to move into the top 20, and this is movies that I liked all of these. These are movies I thoroughly enjoyed, all of these movies. So this is where it starts getting a lot of fun. I'm going to put a little ad up on the screen and get a drink, blow my nose, all that fun stuff, and then we'll be back. Start telling us your picks for the favorites. And some of the stuff I missed, some of the ones we got different agreements. Start telling favorites or maybe things I missed that were also great. Let's start having throw those ones in there. If you definitely want us to mention your comment, Super Chat's the best way to do that because there is still 800 people in here watching, so there's a lot of comments happening real fast. We just can't catch all of it. So here we go.
Sean Chandler from the past here once again with my kids to get ask them a few questions. All right, what movies next year are you excited about? We got Toy Story 4?
Yeah.
That sound good?
Yeah.
We've got a Lion King sort of deal coming out. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Dumbo, the one with the elephant that can fly?
Yeah.
You guys are really insightful on this stuff. You're really good at it. Captain Marvel, the one with the girl superhero? That sound good, Chloe? What about Avengers Endgame?
Oh, yeah, that sounds good.
Oh, that does sound good to you. Spider-Man Far From Home, a new Spider-Man movie's coming out.
Yeah. Like Spider-Man to Spider-Verse.
Well, this one's like Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah, kind of like it. That sounds really good.
See? This guy gets it. He's excited for next year. What about you? You get it too?
Yeah.
What are you excited for?
I'm excited for the new Iron Man movie.
The new Iron Man movie. That's cool.
Is there one?
He's going to be in Endgame, so Avengers Endgame. So you're excited for that Endgame movie. Yeah, it could be depressing. That's pretty exciting.
Like that poster.
Oh, yes. There's one over there. All right. With that said, just need a little break for myself. Sean Chandler in the present. Back to you.
We are back. Hopefully it wasn't too long of a pause there. I was reading over there. We got two quick little super chats. Another one from Mohan. He says, have you seen Green Book? And I'm learning Say It Ain't So by Weezer. As for have I seen Green Book? I didn't. I wanted to. It was on my list, but it just didn't work out with this. There was even times I went to see, like, is it playing right now so I can go check it out? I haven't seen it, so it's not going to be in my top 20. And Say It Ain't So is absolutely one of those songs that every band I've ever been in has done a cover of Say It Ain't So. And that's in all kinds of settings. That song has made so many appearances. And then my buddy Andy King from King's Comics says, review Scanners. Andy. Maybe you can have me over on your channel. We can do a movie night and watch Scanners, and we can review Scanners for your channel, and it'll blow our heads. Maybe it'll be mind-blowing, this movie. That's a reference to the movie if you haven't seen it. Coming in at number 20, a movie my wife loved. This was one of her favorites of the year, bringing us into our top 20, Teen Titans Go to the Movies. She didn't like it. She was not a fan of the film. And I mean, I get it. I understand where she's coming from, of sorts.
I think part of it was you didn't help me with my expectations from the get-go. Y'all had such a great time and said it was such a great movie and it was hilarious. And then I didn't understand why it was hilarious to you guys. And so then we watched it and I was like, oh no.
See, for me, it sends up, it's like a spoof of the comic book genre while being a comic book movie. It sends up celebrity culture. It just has, it like actually kind of witty and comments on stuff.
I appreciated the concept. I don't like all the potty humor and all that random stuff.
When did you stop liking potty humor?
Never liked potty humor.
You used to run into the room and you'd fart and...
That's not real.
Did I... Oh, she looked at me funny again. Sorry, I didn't mean that. So anyway, back to our movie. I just enjoyed it because it was just a fun movie that had something to say. It's juvenile. I totally get why she doesn't like it. I totally get why some of you don't like it. It's not for everyone. To use our ongoing analogy, it's spicy. It has some kick to it. And I put down movies like Hotel Transylvania for having base body fart humor and stuff like that. And I think this movie has that same humor, but it has wit to it. Like when it does a fart joke about the balloon guy having gas coming out of his butt, it's structured like an actual joke. There's an actual like there's something funny about what's being said. The joke isn't, someone farted. That's what Hotel Transylvania felt like for me. That's what Happy Time Murders felt like for me. Whereas this movie, they're making something funny. They're saying something that has a wit to it. There's cleverness to it. And so that makes all the difference for me on this one. So that's why this one comes in at number 20 for me. Real quick, I got... What did I do wrong here? Sorry. Slight technical problem on my videos. Sometimes these ones... It's not working. So I had a little bumper video as we went into the 10s, but it didn't work for whatever reason. Technology causes trouble sometimes when you do this stuff. Coming in at number 19 is Game Night. Game Night you liked. This is one of those movies where I love the cast to it, where you got Kyle Chandler, Rachel McAdams, Jason Bateman. So naturally I was interested in it. And then it's just a comedy that the humor landed for me. And then it's a movie that's much better directed than you would think it would be. And what I mean by that is like the action sequences feel like actually choreographed action sequences. The chase sequences are actually exciting and fun. They're not just like throwaway comedy action sequences. And then there's like the way the movie cuts between scenes as it does like this board game looking model as it like transitions. Is it just does a bunch of stuff that's really clever, fun. The jokes landed. It's exciting. So this one absolutely worked for me. You dug it too, right?
I did. I enjoyed it.
And the only reason you married me is because you've had a crush on Kyle Chandler since the 90s, and I was the best option you could find, right?
No.
Oh, that's good. I like that because
I've had a crush on Kyle Chandler since the 90s, but I didn't marry him because of that.
Okay, good. That's good. And Kyle Chandler is actually my cousin. That's correct, right?
Technically.
Technically true. Not the same one that's the actor. But I do have a cousin named Kyle Chandler, and so if you happen to be somewhere where you have if you're at a college and your coach is named Kyle Chandler, that's probably my cousin. Coming in at number 18, one that I know you liked, Juliet Naked. Now, based off the title, you might think this is one of them pornograph films. It is not. The movie it's like a rom-com, indie rom-com, so it's not like high concept Matthew McConaughey rom-com from 15 years ago, but it's like a movie about I don't need to describe the whole plot line to it, but the title refers to basically an album called Juliet, and it's like the demo version of it, and it's this whole story about the guy that made the album falling in love with this other girl, and she's with a guy, and some of the love triangle type things, and you just see it, and you're kind of exploring these deep people that have deep flaws, and it's just a nice little film that kind of went under the radar, just a solid, enjoyable, not like comedy, but like an amusing, funny film. Not like an over-the-top romance, but a nice little dash of romance into the mix. And just a movie kind of made for adults that can be enjoyable. What was your take on this one?
I liked it. I thought it was refreshing.
Yeah.
Kind of to your point, it wasn't playing too heavily into any one particular genre.
Yeah.
It had a bunch of different flavors to it. I love seeing Ethan Hawke.
Yeah.
As a curmudgeonly former musician.
Yeah, he's great at and he's been in a lot of stuff, but he doesn't do the big blockbuster stuff, so you can easily miss him whatever he's been in a given year. And so then having him show up in this one is kind of like a real likable guy that's also a very broken guy. And then you love Rose Byrne, and so then she's in it, so that's a nice little dynamic to it. You really like Chris O'Doyle.
Love him.
Love Chris O'Doyle, even though you don't like Bridesmaids, but like you love him because of that movie, and because of the Puffins. And so then he shows up in this one. Puffin Rock. And so then he shows up in this one. It's just a cast that we enjoy, and it doesn't feel like anything else, but it's also not like so weird and different that it's alienating. So it's a real solid. If you like rom-coms, but not necessarily like Matthew McConaughey rom-com, absolutely check this one out. Coming in at number 17, our second Gerard Butler in the top 40, Den of Thieves. This is from last January, and everyone that I know that saw it really liked it. It's a little bit like a modern-day update of Heat with Gerard Butler and Pablo Schreiber as the kind of the bad guy in it. And I just thought it worked as a big heist movie. Real macho type movie, alpha males. At times it can be violent, but it just worked for me. I like these actors. I like this type of movie. And some people thought it was too long. I didn't feel that way. And I got out of it and I was like, I guess that was a pretty long movie, but I didn't feel the runtime as I was watching it. And so I was a big fan of this one. And so, yeah, if you like heist movies, check this one out. For what Gerard Butler gets a bad rap for, I'm not entirely sure why, but I think both of his movies this year have been solid entries. Here's another one of those. Number 16, I left this one off of my honorable mentions for best of the year kind of by accident. It could have been on that list, but I saw it after I started making my list, and that's kind of why it wasn't mentioned as honorable mention. But Bumblebee, our latest Transformers movie, they decided to go back and try and gave it the vibe of a bunch of these 80s Amblin films. They set it during the 80s. It's got an E.T. vibe to it. It's got an Iron Giant vibe to it. You got a great cast in the mix with Haley Steinfeld in the lead. So she's, of course, obviously very watchable, likable in these movies. They put John Cena in there, and he's very solid in this type when they use him properly, and he's used properly in this one because he makes angry, scowly faces, he yells at people, and he cracks jokes. So he can do those three things, so he works well in the movie. But yeah, it's a movie that has the best characters of any Transformers movies, has the most heart of any Transformers movies. And because you care about the characters and the emotions of it, the action sequences land better well. It's not as big a spectacle as the Michael Bay movies, but when you have them, you know what's going on, you know what every character wants, and so they land. And so Bumblebee was absolutely a movie that I had a blast with. I had a ton of fun with, and it worked for me. And it could have been on my honorable mentions for best of the year, but literally, I missed it just because of the way I write videos. For whatever that is worth. Coming in at number 15, the movie everyone has been asking about, Aquaman. It was just a fun, lighthearted, unassuming adventure. The DCEU has a spotty track record. People have all kinds of feelings about the DCEU. And they get very worked up over some of those movies. And a bunch of them have tried to have some statement to make about deconstructing heroes and things like that. This movie just went, let's have fun and let's throw everything in there. We're going to throw in bright color scheme. We're going to have battles, chases. James Wan does these great long takes, wide angles so you can see all of the action as it happens. We're going to throw in Pitbull singing covers of Africa. We're going to throw pop music in the mix. We're throwing everything in there. And some of it works, some of it doesn't work. It's definitely corny at times, but I thought it was very entertaining. And to contrast it with some of the other movies on the list for me that were overcrowded and things like that, this one just worked. It didn't distract. I could acknowledge there's some problems with the logic of this. This is a bit much. This is kind of corny. I just had a blast with it. You just saw this one a couple weeks back, or a week back. You thought it was the greatest movie of all time because you saw Jason Momoa with shirt off all wet?
No.
What?
I mean, it was fun. I felt like there were lulls in places that took longer to get there, and there were a few silly little things that bothered me. But
she did not like the soundtrack. The music did not.
It was really disorienting. It didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't.
Because you'd be watching
necessarily-
it and then. That's my Pitbull impression.
It's pretty
I
good.
dance the rains down in like what just happened? What is happening that we're suddenly playing this song? A little bit of a weird decision on their part. But so yeah, I that's my kind of quick take on that one. But I had fun with it. I really enjoyed it. It's just fun. There we go. I realized I hadn't updated some of my stuff on here, so now let's see if this works. There we go. This is what I wanted to show you before. It's not really impressive. You've seen it now. Next up on our list, The Favorite. I saw this one at the Austin Film Festival, the same film festival where I saw The Front Runner. I saw this movie, and it's like about British royalty 300 years ago or so. I don't remember the exact time frame. Weird story about weird people fighting for the throne, the backbiting, and very weird direction with these everything's designed to show off how weird their behavior is. So it's shot in these with these wide angle lenses that do the fisheye deal. And so you see it, and when Nick Holt walks into a room, he looks like he's 7 feet tall. And just designed in this weird way. It's this bizarre sense of humor to it. And so it's a movie that, if I were to tell you the plot of it, I'd be like, it would not sound at all like a movie that I would enjoy. But actually, the movie itself is quite interesting because it's so well crafted. The characters are so intriguing and nuanced, and it has this really dark sense of humor to it. So it works so much better than I would have thought a movie like this would work for me. And so if you like, especially, it's from the guy that did The Lobster. So if you've seen that one, I haven't, but it's a weird movie as well. So naturally, this one would be a weird take on British royalty. So very interesting little film. My nose is going crazy after 3 hours straight of talking. Number 13, Crazy Rich Asians. Probably one of the best rom-coms that last 5-10 years or whatever. I mean, rom-coms aren't super common these days, but what made this one work is that it's when I joked before about Matthew McConaughey rom-coms having this, it's like, let's take a ridiculous scenario and let's take two people that are opposites and come up with an absurd scenario that brings them together and then they fall in love. It's all intentionally contrived. Like you think, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, inherently the plot line is contrived. It's designed to be contrived. The plotline here is designed to be, it flows out of actual cultural differences. And the drama that would come about from the reality of a American Asian dating and getting engaged to an actual guy from Asia and going back to this part of the world, there's cultural differences that would manifest themselves, and whether you're talking about socioeconomic, America versus that type of the world, the value sets, that's where the tension comes from. The humor lands in it. It's actually romantic. There's a great wedding sequence. This is a very, very expensive looking wedding. But just all in all, a movie that wouldn't by default be one that you would think that I'd be really into, but it's just a good movie that it draws out the right emotions from you. So I really enjoyed it, and I don't know what they're going to do for a sequel. I don't know how the sequel could land as well for me, but It's coming. Coming in number 12 is BlacKkKlansman. This bizarre movie, or not, the movie's not bizarre. The movie's based off a bizarre real incident about a black detective trying to look into the Ku Klux Klan. And so him just calling up the Klan membership phone line and like trying to join in on the Klan. And then him partnering up with Adam Driver to be the face of this character that he creates. Bizarre, interesting movie. And when it's making social commentary through the storytelling, it's just excellent. And does it really well and comments on modern day things through the storytelling. Spike Lee can't hold himself back at times, and so it gets preachy 15% of the time. 85% just really excellent commentary through storytelling. 15% he goes preachy mode and overstates his case in a way that it's like, we're not doing storytelling anymore. We're not using stories to communicate truth about humanity and current times, current politics. We're just preaching. We're taking modern day arguments, issues, and we're putting them in the mouths of people in 1973. And so I wish that he could have held back on that 15% and let the reality communicate about reality. Let the reality of the past communicate to the reality of the present. So 85% excellent, 15% held it out of the top 10. And number 11, and if we got any, we're looking for some questions as we get into our best pictures of the year type stuff. At number 11 is Upgrade. One of the big surprises of the year for me. One of those movies, I didn't see the trailer for it. I didn't know anything about it. But my friend Cody Leach, who's made several appearances in this video before, through me talking about him not actually appearing, he texted me while I was at work one day, dude, you got to go see Upgrade. And I was like, if Cody says I got to go see Upgrade, I better go see Upgrade. So as soon as I got off work, I texted Jennifer. And I was like, I'm not coming home. I'm going to the movies. And I went to go see Upgrade, and it's just great. Especially not having seen the trailer. It's a movie that was just such a fresh, simple sci-fi action storyline that I like sci-fi, I like action. It's got a little horror in the mix, and it's just got kind of a clever script to it. Several points along the way, I thought to myself, oh, this is getting predictable. Oh, I know where this is going. I know what's about to happen. And every time I did that, it outsmarted me. It led me down a path, and then it twisted it, and it got to the last 5 minutes. I was like, are you kidding me? Really, this is the payoff? And then it had another twist and another twist, and I went, yeah, you got me. I'm buying your movie. And I like movies like that. They're just simple, well-crafted, simple plot lines, and that's what this movie was. Such a pleasant surprise. If you like action, sci-fi, horror, go check this one out. It's from the guy that wrote the Saw movies, or the good Saw movies, so go check it out. All right, let's pause real quick. Do we have any... I know we have at least one super chat.
Can't see it on mine.
Alex H. said, longtime viewer here, absolutely love what you're doing. Can't wait for next year. Love the ant puns. Yes, the ant puns are making a comeback. People still love our amazing, amazing ant puns. So maybe just I was getting too many complainers in there. It's probably people that are new and they don't know me, so they think every video is just me doing puns. Perhaps that's what it is. But thank you so much for watching, subscribing. Obviously, the super chat, I really appreciate it. Anyone comments on movies I just talked about? I know I've gotten some pushback on my take on BlacKkKlansman because some people just love it. I mean, it's the top 10 for a lot of people. It's almost top 10 for me.
I haven't seen anything about that. I've heard people or saw people wondering where it was in your list. Some people are asking about Paddington 2. Even though we already talked about Holmes and Watson.
I've kind of seen Paddington 2, but I haven't really seen it.
And
You guys watched
you
it.
haven't seen.
Which one? Holmes and Watson. I still haven't seen it. I did not watch it while making this video.
You didn't see the Mamma Mia sequel, did you?
I haven't seen the first one.
original?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. And then someone said you turned into Bruno Mars, I guess, when you did your Pitbull impression, which I thought was funny. Let's see. There's been a bunch of people with the most anticipated for next year. Talking about the new Lego movie or Detective Pikachu.
Are you asking my take on those? Or just saying those are their most
Well,
anticipated?
and wondering what yours is, yeah.
So I did a
didn't know
video
you were
2
gonna
days
do
ago
that.
with my most anticipated, so it's all in there. I don't have any new additional information. Movies that aren't in there, it doesn't mean I'm not anticipating them. It's just that, I mean, there's several hundred movies coming out next year, and there's about 40 that are like, oh, that could be really cool. There's like 40, like right off the bat, I went, I'm very interested in that. I can't make a video. Like, I might make a video with 10 more movies I'm anticipating, but at a certain point in time, I'm just milking it a little bit. So, like, I'm anticipating Lego Movie 2, but I'm not fully feeling it yet, though. Maybe I'm a little bit tired of the Lego movies since my son watches everything Lego, including the ones we talked about in here that are the direct-to-video ones. But so, How to Train Your Dragon, I'm excited about it, but it's just not like, oh, wow, I can't wait for it. And you have to factor in on some of these that I gravitate towards movies that a 37-year-old man would like more so than a movie that a kid would like. And so some of the stuff like Toy Story 4, just the inherent nature of it, I'm kind of past that being like, I'm so excited about that. And also on Toy Story 4, rather than tell a new story, rather than a fourth trip to the toy box. So, and he closed out the trilogy really nice, so I don't know where we're going with this. So, those are some of my thoughts on some of that one. Any final things before we go to the top 10?
You didn't see Goosebumps?
No, I haven't seen Goosebumps 1.
What about Welcome to Marwin?
That's another one. Malcolm and Marwan's one that you were interested in. I mean, Steve Carell, so we're very interested. It's Robert Zemeckis, like Back to the Future guy. So there's a bunch of reasons we were very interested in that one, but it's come out over the last couple weeks, and I legitimately have spent all of my time making videos to finish out the year. I'm taking the next week off. Actually, after this video, I'm going to take a week off, probably because I won't be able to talk anymore after this video, but also because there's not new stuff coming out, and I just need to rest. But so I just didn't see Holmes and Watson. I didn't get to go see Welcome to Marwin.
Did you ever see Uncle Drew?
No, I didn't see Uncle Drew. So a bunch of these ones you're talking about, I didn't have to get to see them. I was invited to the press screening of Uncle Drew, but I had like multiple press screenings that week, and all the press screenings are in Austin, and we're in the suburbs, northern suburbs, and so to get to the close press screenings, it's like 35 minutes. Some of them are on the other side of town, in which case we're very far northeast. Some of them are northwest or southwest, and so then it's a 45-hour-long drive to get there. So Uncle Drew is in that category. I was like, I just can't keep doing this. So any final things before we go into our final little stretch here? If you want to share your final thoughts on the movies this year, your picks for best of the year, stuff that I left out, if you want to tell me why I'm wrong, final chance to share that in the super chats where definitely will get your thoughts shared with the universe. With that said, it's time for the top 10. These new graphics that I don't actually design all this stuff, but I have the software thing so I can make some new things. So I have fun designing those ones for this one. So I might work in some of these fun little doodads into some of my future videos. Bringing us into the top 10. If you watched my video from last week, you can probably guess where some of this is going. Coming in at number 10 is Black Panther. This one turned out to be a lot more of a controversial pick than I realized. Because it's the highest grossing film in America this year. And it's got like a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. When a movie's that popular and that successful, there tends to be a pretty hard slap back, and Black Panther's definitely getting it. So this one's a lot more controversial than I was expecting it to be. So if you hated it, please let us know. I want to hear, I want the argument. Don't just say, I hated it, it's stupid, it was boring. Don't just say that. Make an argument. What is wrong with Black Panther that makes it not good? But for me, it felt like most of the Marvel movies are fairly unassuming in that they're just entertainment. They're not trying to make a big statement. They're not commenting on anything. And so this one was a nice little bit of a change of pace that the context of the film, the world of Wakanda, lent itself well to make some statements about current things in society through storytelling. And that's the appropriate use of doing that. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like, where's this coming from? No, Wakanda being this hidden, super advanced society that can help the world but hasn't been, that is an appropriate context. That's ripe for making a commentary, and that's what they did. And so I thought that was good. And they used Killmonger very nicely in that he's a villain that wants to send weapons to the world because of his insane worldview of things. All that's bad. But his commentary, his criticism of Wakanda, that they have the technology to help people and didn't. They had the technology to potentially stop some of the African slave trade and they didn't do that. That's an interesting critique that makes for an interesting ideological worldview change for Wakanda and for our lead character. And that's what makes it a movie that I think is on that next level on some things. Now, on the basic level of a Marvel movie, it has made some really weird mistakes. In the action, I don't think is very good, especially coming after Civil War, where he was one of the standouts in how they handled his action. Here, I don't think it's nearly as good. Likewise, the idea of him having a power suit that you punch him and then he gets stronger, that's a really, cinematically speaking, a very bad power set to give a character, because it just makes it takes away the conflict and interest out of a fight sequence. The final battle of him falling down, I didn't like any of that stuff. Some of the humor is a little bit forced, but on that next level, storytelling drama level, it's something real special. Coming in at number 9, a movie that a lot of you guys were disappointed by, Incredibles 2. Maybe it's because I've never put Incredibles 1 on this big pedestal. Like, other people talk about it like, wow, that's Incredibles 2. It's just mind-blowing. It's the greatest thing. It's the best comic book movie forever.
Incredibles 1?
Yeah, the Incredibles 1. Incredibles 1 I don't put on a pedestal. I think it's very good. I thoroughly enjoy it. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I just don't put it up here on this next level stuff. Likewise, when it comes to that movie, I'm not crazy about Syndrome as a villain. It's this villain trope that I frequently criticize in my videos that was used by it's Electro, it's Killian in Iron Man 3, it's the Riddler in Batman Forever, where the villain at the beginning of the movie has hero worship for our hero. They're insulted by our hero, and therefore they turn into a supervillain that wants to kill people. I just don't buy it. I don't. It's not a compelling story for me in any of the ways it's kind of used. The original Incredibles, in certain ways, does it a lot better in that he gets the great line about, I'm going to make everyone special so that no one's special. Like, whatever that line is, that's a cool little line. It has a little bit more depth here. But as for, am I inspired or anything, like, compelled by his... No. So I go into Incredibles 2, and it just gave me more of everything I liked about the original one without having a villain trope that I'm tired of, that I don't like. And so in certain ways, it improved on the original one for me. But the family stuff worked. The Jack humor was, I thought, really funny. And so having not going into it expecting a movie that's the greatest thing ever, just expecting a good time at the movies, I got that out of Incredibles 2. And number 8 is Searching, another smaller film that kind of got under the radar. I didn't like the trailers for it. I got bored by the trailers. I was invited to a press screening for it. The director was going to be at, but it was the same day as the Mission Impossible Fallout press screening. And so I actually abandoned going to see Searching real early with the director present to go see Mission Impossible Fallout. And I was like, whatever Searching is. And went to go see this one instead. And then I saw it. I was later on, and I loved it. I just, right out of the gate, I just captured it. The opening 10 minutes of it reminds me of Up. For good reason. It's not like there's some obvious parallels between the opening sequence of Up and telling a family story in a creative manner. It does the same sort of thing here and setting everything up. But using technology and understanding even like the way it uses like operating system updates to demonstrate the passing of time, stuff like that, just real clever, smart. And you felt emotions just watching this. And then it takes a fairly cliche plot line about a missing daughter, thriller stuff, and does it in a unique way that makes it so the red herrings landed for me. And the big reveal at the end, I got worried about 10 minutes from the end when it starts to unfold things. I was like, okay. Actually, about 3 times during the movie, I was like, really? This is where we're going? Really? This is where we're going? And then it does the final reveals, and I went, oh. All right. Searching director, writer guy, you win, you pulled it off. I thought it was a very cool little movie. You saw that one with me recently. Did it live up to my hype?
I didn't hear your hype.
I just hyped it right now.
Oh, I thought you meant before I saw it. I thought you saw it with me the first time, right?
No, I saw it in the theater.
Oh, that's right. No, I enjoyed it. I thought it was well made. I thought the spins or I can't talk. Sorry. The use
me neither.
Of well, I haven't been talking. The use of media as a plot point was really interesting and fascinating. And yeah, I don't know. It was good. I enjoyed it.
Coming in at number 7, to agree with my son, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This is your pick for the best of the year, right?
I have haven't looked at the list of all the movies for the year and like really thought about it. But when we left the
We
theater,
just did. That's what we've been doing.
No, I know, but I mean, I haven't really thought. I'm helping you with your list and watching your list and not thinking a lot about my list. But yes, that's totally what I said when we left the theater. Was that it was my favorite.
But I mean, on so many different levels, if you just as an animation fan, if you like animation, it's one of the most interestingly animated films of all time. Just really cool the way they animated it. So it works on that level. As a Spider-Man movie, it touches on all the Spider-Man stuff you like, but it's also totally different because it's Miles Morales. So that it works on that level. It's kind of a commentary on superhero movies and Spider-Man himself in doing some of the, I've got a popsicle. I've got, it works on that level. And so it's a movie that does a bunch of weird different stuff and all of it lands. And it goes really weird in the Spider-Verse stuff and Spider-Ham showing up and Spider-Noir, and it lands. And that's what makes this movie so exciting for me, is they did something weird and different, and it works. And it's mainstream. They took the weird and they made it palatable for everyone. And so that's a movie to me that I just thought might be the coolest movie this year. A movie like, I'm just so glad this exists. I'm glad they pulled this off and it worked. And everyone that sees it, almost everyone that sees it loves it.
Yeah, not everyone that sees it loves it.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. It's like everyone loves it.
Nope.
I know that's not the case. And
That's
so
not the
that's
case.
a whole lot of people love it. Not quite everyone, though. Coming in at number 6, you haven't seen this one yet, Creed 2. How have you not seen that? Man, we got to fix that.
I had a
That's-
baby.
Baby, that's what moms are for. They can watch them now. We can. So anyway, it's Creed 2. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the Rocky movies. Rocky Balboa is probably my favorite movie character of all time. I love the fact that we're getting to track with his life 40 years later, and they found a way to make it work, that we can do that, and they can make great movies out of it. And so this movie, I was really worried about it because they're doing it, like, going so deep into, like, we're going to bring Ivan Drago back, and it's like, let's deal with that stuff again. And that can go real bad. That could go real south real fast. And I just felt like they did what they did with the first film, which was they dug in deep, discovered those real human emotions that would be in these characters if this really happened. And this much time passed. And so then you get to explore them on these new, deeper levels. And it's a very solid continuation of the previous film in a movie that kind of makes Rocky IV better by making Ivan Drago a real character that has a backstory. And I had one discussion with someone in my review for it where they really didn't like the final fight and where it kind of goes in the last little segment of it and the way they resolved all of that. And I think that they found a way to really make you care about all of these characters and all of their arcs. And the person was like, it keeps cutting away to these other things and these other people, and that distracts us. That's what made it smarter to me. Because anyone can write two guys punch each other until we have a normal resolution. This is a movie that found a way to have a resolution that tied back to other things, tied characters into it, that had emotional punch because they really dug into what these characters cared about, what they cared about the most, and what would have the most dramatically in the end, besides people pummeling each other until the very end of it. So that's why it really worked for me on that level. And it makes you root for different characters in different ways at the same time. And you have conflicting emotions about the characters as it progresses. Like the longer you go into it, the more you are conflicted as to what you want to have happen towards the end. And that to me is great filmmaking. So I was a big fan. You need to see it. And number 5, one we watched a few weeks back, 8th grade. So I mentioned this before whenever I talked about this one, but so I worked with teenagers from like 2003 until 2016, and I still do speaking for teenagers. So I spent a lot of time with middle schoolers. And this movie so well just captured a time and a place. And having worked with them for so long, I have a story that goes along with almost everything in this movie. Whatever you see, I have some point in time in my life been sitting down with a teenager that was sharing this is where they went off course or they regretted this or they had this insane conversation with their parents. And for some people, that's what makes it boring or uninteresting or tedious to watch because they're like, I just got out of middle school. I don't want to relive it. But for me, that's what made it interesting, is that I actually cared about this girl and her dad, and they're likable while being very awkward, while being very, having a bizarre relationship, but so real. So it all feels earned, and you buy it because they captured this phase of life at this point in time. And so that's for me why it worked. You watched it with me too. Was it too much for you? Was it too real?
Yeah, it was. I mean, being a middle school girl is not something I want to relive.
Okay, I was about to say, I was like, you're not a middle school girl. You were that 5 years ago. Wait,
well,
no,
I mean, that's
10 years ago. I was trying to do that age.
Gross. Yeah.
That's what happens when you try and make jokes and statements like that when you've been talking for 3 hours and 38 minutes straight. Your jokes don't land. Sorry, I was cutting you off on that one.
It goes to my point of why I'm so grateful that we don't have the technology that middle schoolers have today.
Yeah, if there was a track record of
me as a middle schooler,
yeah, oh my god,
you as a middle schooler would be terrible. I'm pretty sure.
Mine would be funny though, because it would be like me doing like karaoke videos and dancing with my buddies, and it'd be the weird type of stuff that I still have all my buddies, and I still have all these VHS tapes of us doing weird stuff, and all the way up until about 6 months ago, we were still doing dumb stuff. Now I'm mature and all grown up. But so for me, this movie just captured a time period, something so well that I just kind of, it really resonated with me that every year you have some movie like this. A few years back it was Boyhood. I haven't seen Boyhood, but it just worked for me.
I think it was well done. I think it captured it well. For me personally, it was like watching somebody's life, like a normal life, not like a superhero and so for me it's like I don't really want to watch somebody's average life. Yes. I want to watch something super interesting. So
yeah. That's what it's, I'll give like you want to escape, you want to have the fun of a movie, the fantastical elements, not like let's just look at what it's really like and make it as uncomfortably realistic as possible. Fair enough. For me, there's normally 1-2 movies a year that I want to see something that's just that real. All right, before I give you my top 4, be sure to tell us down below your picks for best of the year, the ones that I missed, the ones that I didn't see, that I should see, that I still need to catch up on in January, all that final stuff, any final super chats you want to throw over that way. And if you've stuck through the whole thing, if you started with us 3 hours and 40 minutes ago, tell us if you're one of those people that stuck with us. Maybe we can give a few of you guys shout outs on this one. But coming in at number 4, Mission Impossible Fallout. You just watched this for the first time.
I did.
2 days ago.
I want to watch it again.
And literally, we finished watching it. Credits start rolling, and she goes, it's like midnight, and she goes, can we watch this movie again or watch a different Mission Impossible movie? Because that's like the best thing I've ever seen. Since now she talks like a high schooler. But you loved it.
I did.
And I did too. Obviously, my number 4 for the movie, favorite for the year. So this is probably the one that we're closest on, I would imagine.
Probably.
It's just another solid entry. It's a little predictable. Like as we're watching it, as it makes the big reveal later on in the movie, you're like, well, I saw that coming. And it's a movie that works so well that everyone seems to forgive the fact that the central twist reveal is telegraphed about 10 miles out. It's so obvious where it's going, but everything else about it is so good you don't even care. I love that it tied all the movies together more so than any of the other ones. It's looping back to the first movie, and it's looping back to the third movie extensively, and then it's all the plot lines of the last 2 movies. All of it just ties it together in a way that the other ones they felt real episodic, like this week on Mission Impossible. And for the first time, we get a director that's returning, and they fully play that out to tie it all together. The stunt works crazy as ever. I'm trying to look at you so it gets you to chime in.
You want me to chime? I'm sorry.
What did you
read comments and get them ready to read out, so you can't tell me 2 different things.
Oh, competing value sets.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a common theme in my life.
I thought it was fun. I agree with what you just said, that it tied them together, and it was, I like that. Was it Michelle McGonagall? Is that her name? The one that played his wife?
Mashalon. Sometimes I make things up. Yes.
I like her as an actress, so it was nice to see her again. Yeah, I mean, it was just like you said, it was a fun movie. It wasn't anything like life-altering. It was just a fun, good, solid action movie.
Bringing us into the top 3, the movie starring her 2 biggest crushes, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, the movie, A Quiet Place. Now, we didn't know if we were going to watch this one with her because she also is not a Children in Peril fan. And this movie goes there. And so when this movie came out, she was pregnant. Super pregnant. And when it came out on Blu-ray, she was super duper pregnant. And so this movie, everything that could scare her away from watching this movie existed. But the power of John Krasinski and Emily Blunt were there. And she did eventually watch it. For me, I just loved it. They had a clever concept. And instead of just kind of going with the gimmick of the clever concept and making a cheap movie out of it, they really dug into it and said, let's make a movie about family. And what would be an interesting story to tell in this ballpark, in this realm? And what would be the context in which you could tell this story that would make sense that they'd be able to survive in? Oh, so they've got a daughter with hearing loss. So they would have already known sign language. So they'd be successful inside of this. But you add to that, and that adds these extra layers of, okay, well, this girl is also going to make some mistakes because she can't hear as well. And it just ties all these things together in a movie that just feels like everything's thought out really well. And it's crafted in a way that because the rules are so clear, you're watching through the movie and you watch someone grab batteries. You watch a nail and you go, oh no, instantly. And you feel the dread you're supposed to feel. And so it has the tension. I think that was one of the things that I think is Hitchcock said that was one of his tricks, is that you show the audience the bomb so they feel the dread that the main characters don't know yet. Because we've seen the bomb. We know that it's going to happen. And that's what this movie does really well. It has that Hitchcockian tension to it. So great concept, great acting. The whole cast is able to communicate so much without having to say anything. In which case, it's just a movie that delivers what it's trying to deliver really, really well. Our runner-up for Best Movie of the Year is A Star is Born. For me, this is the movie that I've repeatedly said had the broadest emotional spectrum for me. And what I mean by that is that I felt the most emotions watching it, and both strong emotions and the size of emotions as well as diverse emotions, because you're watching it and you're seeing someone fall apart, you're seeing someone rise, you're seeing a romance, like as you just love seeing them together. At certain times you hate seeing them together. You love the way he treats her, you hate the way he treats her. You have tragedy, you have success, you have relationship between family members, fathers and daughters, fathers and sons-in-laws, brothers, and all of these different things and these big emotions, and just all of it with classic storytelling of characters that are face transformation through the journey that they go on. And along the way, we've got great music, some of the best soundtrack of the year, in that we discover, wow, Bradley Cooper can actually sing, and Lady Gaga can actually act. And all of it just kind of comes together to, made me feel maybe the most any movie made me feel this year. So, that's an inappropriately timed burp. So it is my runner-up for Best Film of the Year. You saw it a little bit late. And I didn't want to spoil it for you, and don't spoil it here, but you probably in the latter aspects of the film probably killed some of it for you.
Definitely.
It probably distracted, not because it's poorly done, but just because themes of it, not the direction that you would enjoy.
True.
And this is a movie I probably wouldn't rewatch a whole lot because it gets so dark at times that I wouldn't want to relive it, and touches on certain things that, from own history reasons, I wouldn't want to touch on. But as a movie, the experience of watching it, it really worked. It drew out of me the emotions it was supposed to pull out of me. But my pick for the best movie of 2018, and as I said before, I'm not trying to make a list of my Oscar picks. That's not really who I am.
I've been asking for that.
I'm just not that guy. I'm not wired that way.
They want you and Andy to do it.
I don't know how many movies Andy's seen this year. I don't. He's
To be fair, it wasn't clear on whether they wanted you to do a ranking, like what your hopes or expectations were for the Oscars, or pretend like you were hosting the Oscars? It wasn't really.
So my plan is to rank whatever movies are nominated for Best Picture. I do plan on watching all those and doing a ranking the day before the Oscars of what my ranking is of those movies. But I'm not. The reason that most of you like my channel is because I have the same kind of simplistic tastes as you. That you like blockbusters, you like the escapism, and I can enjoy dramas, but I'm not as sophisticated in my palate when it comes to serious dramas. I'm not as good at that. I'm even when I talk with grown-ups about movies, I almost feel out of place. And so people talk to me about movies a lot because I do this. And so amongst people I know, I'm the person with the best resume for talking about movies. And then they start talking about dramas, and I'm like, can't we start talking about the movies with the people in cosplay and the explosions and purple Shrek and gloves? Like, and that's me. And so when people ask me what would be my picks for best picture for the Oscars, I feel like I'm just making crap up because I don't have my own list. And some of that's I haven't seen all those movies yet. And some of them haven't really even been released where I'm at yet. But I'm out of my league in that regard. As for me and Andy doing kind of our movies we've seen this year, I don't know how many movies he's seen. He's newer to this, and he's the comic book guy. I brought him in because he does comic books, and so he did his own ranking of the comic book movies of this past year and stuff like that. But he's probably seen 30 of this year's movies, 20. I don't know what his number is, but it's not 88. So anyway, that's where it is. But my number one pick, as someone that loves comic book movies, as someone that loves sci-fi, as someone that loves action, as someone that loves movies that just kind of take crazy risks and do things that I go, that was interesting. You went for it. My number one pick, as you guys already know, Avengers Infinity War. I love the MCU. You guys know that. I just think it's such a cool thing that we live in a time where there's a cinematic universe that's been going on this long and it's working. They're pulling it off. And so this is the movie that brought all these franchises together that brought all these franchises together, all these characters, all these actors, and they found a way to take it up to that next level in that we get to see Tony Stark and Doctor Strange bicker back and forth. I love that stuff. We get to see Tony Stark bicker with Star-Lord. We get to have a villain that, as insane as his plan is and as like all the stuff with, you understand where he's coming from and what he's trying to do. And people say, why doesn't he use the glove to create more resources? Okay, yeah, there's contrivances to it. It's not like it's a comic book movie. Of course there's issues inside of a movie about space travel and things like that. You have to just suspend some disbelief in the movie about Purple Shrek trying to kill half of the universe. But just a movie that delivered so many things that I like about movies. In this case, I love the cinematic universe for being this big shared universe. It brings them all together. It has these big, massive battles. It has actual emotion to it. So I'm just not in that category to where I don't think that the end works because, they're going to come back. You know that they're going to have a sequel, so we know Spider-Man Far From Home's coming out, so it doesn't have any emotion. I'm not in that category. I've rewatched Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan 838 times, and it's still got that emotional kick at the end when a certain character dies, even though at the end of the movie, they do a little tease before the credits that the certain dead character's coming back. And the character did come back. And so, I just don't buy that reasoning. I get why some people didn't like the ending. It totally works for me. I feel like the movie has a complete story. It's about who's going to get control of the Infinity Gauntlet, who's going to get all the Infinity Stones, and that's what the story's about, and it has resolution to that story. Just because there's another story afterwards about how do we undo this film doesn't mean that this movie wasn't complete. And so for me, it just does so many things right, so many things I love about movies. It made me laugh. It made me excited. I just loved it. And with the way I watch movies, though, I'm very nervous that Endgame could mess it up. Like when Matrix Revolutions came out, that killed the Matrix movies for me for about 10 years. I couldn't even watch the first one and enjoy it because they killed the mythology with the third one. And the second one was ruined totally because of the third one. I was okay with the second one when I first watched it, and the third one messed it up because the mythology then got wacky. And so Endgame could make the mythology wacky and hurt Infinity War for me. So I'm a little bit nervous about that. But, Russos have a great track record. Kevin Feige has a great track record. So I'm not too worried about it. So for me, my favorite movie of the year, and the movie that I thought was the best movie of the year, as the guy that loves blockbusters and has the tastes of a child, Avengers Infinity War. We've done it. We did it. In slightly under 4 hours. We are only 1 hour over our schedule. And I haven't totally lost my voice yet. I'm forcing through the fact that my voice is not in the best shape. It's getting a little bit scratchy, but we did it. Anyone, final thoughts from people who made it through the whole thing with us?
Oh, we have too many. I don't even know how long it take us to read all of the people that said.
Oh, that is awesome that you guys made it and stuck with us. If you could do some quick shout outs for us.
I can read what I wrote down. My screen.
Yeah, give us what you can.
Slice Dude, I Am the Batman, Extinction Animation, Foxes Are Bosses 15, Sea-Batch, Mustang GT5, Trevor Donegan, Safe Sufjan Autom, sorry if I messed that up.
3 sodas.
Sure I did. Melody, XD, Movie Man, Kaz Slaughter, Hero Games, FTW, Edbar571, Jay Williams, Jubal Card, Asa Hems, Girl Warrior Books.
Man, that is awesome. You are true. You got a ton of them.
I haven't even typed them all.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching, caring what I have to say. It's a bizarre thing to have so many people that care what I have to say about movies. It's so cool that we can do this, that we can talk movies, and that you guys are, if you guys want to real quick, I can't read them all off, but just where are you at? Where are you watching from?
Word.
And because I'll post videos and within 10 minutes someone's like, I'm in India, I'm in Australia, I'm in Canada, and I know I'm mispronouncing that one. I'm in England. And it's like, wow, people all over the world right now are talking about movies. We're together, having fun. And that's what makes this so cool, that we can be a part of this literally global experience of talking about movies, which makes it sound pretentious phrasing it that way, but it's true. We've got people from all over the place talking about movies together, and that's what makes it so exciting. Going into 2019, let's keep talking movies too much. I keep saying that at the end of my videos, but it's going to be fun to see what's going to happen. 2018 is just such a great year for me, for my family, and that's because of all of you wonderful people watching, liking, subscribing, all that fun stuff. And I hopefully have big plans for 2019 to take it to that next level. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm excited to find out. Is it coming through yet where they're from?
There we go. Yeah, it just started coming through. I was still on all the ones chiming in from, they were still here. Romania.
Wow, Romania.
Indiana, Alabama, Kansas, Las Vegas, Leicester, England. I don't know if I said that right. I think that's Connecticut. It's bouncing. I'm trying to read, and it's the Netherlands, Earth. Thank you.
Yes. Someone from Earth is in here.
Germany, Athens, Singapore, Ohio, Sweden, Philippines.
Man, that's so cool to me. Like right now, we're literally as the world talking about movies together. But as we close out, truly thank you. And the plan is next year, 365 days from now, we will be back doing this exact same thing. And potentially, I'm going to try and see more movies this year than I've seen before. So it'll be even bigger next year than it was this year. I got to go blow my nose and pass out on the floor. And we got to go pick up our kids.
Yes, we do.
So thank you so much. Truly. I've said that too many times, but whoops. What have I done? By clicking dumb things. Sorry about all that. I'm trying to close this out because sometimes when I finish a live stream, the last few seconds cut out. So I was hoping to cut to a graphic, but I don't have a graphic to cut through. So I'm just rambling at the end.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm truly going to click stop this time. Bye-bye.